Workshop of Monday, June 27, 2016. Let the record show the City Commission is in full attendance with our City Manager and City Attorney and other guests and members of staff. If you would stand, we'll do a pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Okay, public comments. Is anybody?
Larry!
Only one for public.
Larry Canterbury. I just need help with something. Over the last 2 years, I've been contacted by both the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department to do training on in buildings where you're going to be doing demolition. I know you're working on an ordinance here right now. What they've asked from me is they want to do confined space training in some of my properties, and also the K-9 unit wants to do some training for finding people that are hiding in closets and things. And I've been working with Captain Egan on it for the last couple of months. I thought I'd have all the paperwork by now. I don't have anything yet. And I just need some hold harmless agreements. I need some insurance clauses. I need some insurance policy issues that are all very standard things in this type of stuff. I've done this before. And I thought I'd have the stuff from the county by now, and I have nothing. So I'm going to get the stuff from the county to the city for the fire department side of it. And right now I'm just sitting nowhere, and I've got permits ready to go. So if we can get this moving forward somehow, we can get some of this training done.
Jane, you want to contact the chiefs behind you, the fire chief, but you can contact Captain Egan and maybe Chief Snyder, and you can get together and get him the necessary information.
Whatever you need.
They should have, that should be a standard pack if they do that all over the county. Somebody dropped the ball or put it in the wrong file folder or something. Is that it? Anybody else? Okay. The business at hand. Ms. Shane, you want to turn the meeting over to Ms. Honecker, or do you want to make some opening comments?
Mr. Hoppe, can I interrupt you for
yes, ma'am.
a quick second? We have some special guests here tonight, and Chris, do you want to introduce? Yeah.
And just so you all know, this is your sports marketing team. Flew in from Louisiana today, and they're going to be touring the city tomorrow, but we spent half the day together and really had a good open dialogue. Looking at a city center concept along Howland, also discussing the stadium potential, and then also going to talk about the individual parks and our sports needs overall. So just if I can make a quick introduction, that's Rod Cash from Tetra Tech, who you might already know, engineer. That's Coach Jerry Stovall from Louisiana, former LSU head football coach. It's Joey Furr, who's our landscape architect designer. And this is Eric Ingeman. Did I say it right?
You did.
And Eric and Jerry actually are the sports marketing part, and then Joseph knows, land use and design, conceptual recreation.
Welcome aboard, all y'all. And Rod, we know you're old.
And everybody knows Rod.
Right.
Can you send us also an email with the names of the people in the companies that work, so we have that? I mean, I'm trying to write them and go, okay, no way I'm going to remember all that, guys.
And then I can spell their names correctly, too.
Thank you. Just kind of zip us a little, hey, these are the
You
people
put it
that
phonetically, too, so we don't.
Yeah.
I already tell you probably had a problem already.
Yeah.
With a name like mine, I don't want to take a chance on somebody's name.
Oh, and Mr. Furr would like to add one thing quickly.
Yes.
I would just like to tell you we're excited to be here, and we believe that you guys have some great potential. One of the things I want to say, though, is we would like to really work with the commission as we go through, so that we're not giving you something at the end of the day that has been done kind of in a vacuum or just with people behind the scenes. So after we've had a great meeting today and tomorrow, we're going to kind of get our thoughts together and potentially come back and maybe have a work session with you guys. There's some good potentials. There's also some things that we need to look at that are kind of outside of what you may be thinking about in terms of traditional sports or sports tourism, that some housekeeping things, for lack of better things, that we want to start talking about, so you as a commission can start figuring out what we're going to do about funding and management and promotion and bringing in other outside commercial developments that will really impact the economic development. So we're glad to be here. We'll be calling on you guys. Hopefully, we'll be working real close with y'all. So at the end of the day, we've got a good understanding of what's going to ultimately be presented at the end of the day.
Yeah, it benefits all the short, sweet updates often is better than one long
Yeah.
thing later, which everybody's gonna rip apart, so.
But we need your input too for us to do
Yeah,
our
well,
job, for us
you
to
know,
do our job well. We
We're
need
good at criticizing, not good at.
We could love to
picking
give
out.
information. We love.
We can criticize any plan, but I mean, let us go ahead of time.
Where do we make our list and turn it into? You know, it's like, where do you start?
Well, I can already tell that y'all like each other, which is
That's not.
different than a lot of.
Oh, you got that one wrong.
Hang around for a
Oh, wrong.
Don't stay past 6.
Well, thank you.
You stay after 6 o'clock, they start, some of them that haven't eaten early get hungry, they get ugly.
Somebody bring our snacks with us.
All right.
What are we doing, food there?
Food, yeah, don't start, that's another workshop. We'll talk about that. You got food here. Last
I hit
year's
the carpet.
Halloween candies left. Guys, you can be, if you need to leave, go ahead and take off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Nice meeting you.
Introductions.
We look forward to hearing from
Rod,
you.
we'll see you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, thank you.
All right, Mr. Honaker, you have the floor, sir.
You gave me the wood.
It scares us.
And first, my apologies for having to make the briefing, but it's something I've done a lot of research on. And you know I'm not the best public speaker in the world, so if I offend, it's not my intention. Just to get the information over in the military, we say you're supposed to identify the type of briefing. It's a decision briefing, pass on information to you, it's one decision. Do we want to move forward with funding a study or not? At the end, we the final decision. So all a little background on this. Everybody's seen the slides that were out there. Everybody knows our budget's a little over 10.5 million actually for the fire services every year. Something that won't go down, it's only going to go up because we need more firefighters. We need to get our ISO down, which is our insurability. I mean, we could use another fire station. So the bill's never going to go down. Our Volusia County Sheriff's Office is just under 10 million this year, so that's over 20 million in ad valorem expenses out of our general fund. And it's taken out of the general fund, which is ad valorem tax revenue plus some other taxes that we get put in there. And our annual ad valorem fund that we get from the taxes is 13.5 million. So we spend 20 million and we get 13.5, so we're kind of upside down. When we first started, it wasn't bad. We were 1.5 about upside down. And we just took that from other areas in the general fund. But as time goes on and costs go up, we're getting further and further upside down to where we eventually have to get into a debt crisis with this. Like Helen did. If you didn't see, they just did a fire services assessment fee because they were at 10 mills. You can't go any more than 10 mills, and they couldn't pay their fire department services budget next year. So they had to get Burton and Associates to do a study for them. And by the way, these numbers are approximate. I am not a Burton and Associates. So that's, go out and hire a firm to do a professional study to see how much we could capture. But they had to. They were in a debt crisis, so they had to do a fire service assessment fee. I really don't think we should wait till we have to do this, and we're in a debt crisis. Let's get the ball rolling on it and at least do the study. So somewhere down the road, next year, year after that, we know we can do it and how much could be captured. But our property values, they do go up and down. And if anybody thinks they're never going to go down again, well, let's look at what's happening in the world today. And we know that it's just too unpredictable. Our other general revenue sources are being used to pay for things that they could be used in other places. We have a fire service assessment fee. It's a constant known that way, whether you capture 50%, 70% of what we're spending, 100% of what we're spending. It's a known. We know what we're going to get every year. We do that with stormwater. We do that with our solid waste. Our firefighters deserve that. They deserve to know we're getting X amount of dollars every year, so they're only going to have to take out this much of our general fund, and our residents deserve that. That's financial security. We're not giving them financial security. We're based it on millage rate and the property value, which Volusia County does. They use 4 mills times the assessed value for their fire district. 4 mills. I looked up some of theirs, and it's the assessed value anywhere from $200 to $800 for a fire services district.
More than that.
Oh yeah, I just picked a couple of them. And one was just acreage. His acreage was worth $199,000, and it came to, I couldn't believe it. That was just his acreage, because they charge acreage too. but it's a calculated rate based on a ready-to-serve methodology. The old methodology, which they could still use if they want, the old methodology was services, number of calls you did, fire calls. The new methodology is ready-to-serve. Our firefighters are hired and are ready to serve 24/7. And the only thing you can't charge for it is ALS. They're all basic responders, first responders. They're all trained in that. My ex-wife of 30 years was a firefighter in Baltimore City and a paramedic. And they're all trained in level 1 and level 2 to be first responders, BLS, basic life support. So we can charge for basic life support. That's what they're trained to do. We can't charge for advanced life support. And if we go on the slide, you'll see what's that. Well, we have 2,804 homeowners that don't pay any Deltona ad valorem taxes for various reasons. And there's a way to help them compensate for that. There's some cities like Palatka that does a deferment. They fill out an application each year and say, I would like to defer my taxes this year. When they sell their house, or they pass on and their house is sold, then the city is paid. So you can do deferments, you can do exemptions. They're not saying that everybody is stuck, you're going to pay this no matter what. You can establish an exemption or a deferment basis. And there's 3,708 homes that pay $100 or less. So that's a fifth of our homes, almost a fifth of our homes in Deltona. 6,512 out of 33,612 that pay less than $370,800. I do that by $100 times the 3,708 that do pay $100 or less, and that's a total of $370,000 out of $13.5 million. So the rest of them are paying that $13 million. It's not fair and equitable. Do you see the dollars? It's not fair and equitable for 4/5 of our residents.
The wording of that bullet item sounds kind of fishy, but it's just the way it's worded.
Yeah, it's just the way it's worded. Like I said, I'm not a professional, and they are approximates. The numbers, Bob did help me with the numbers, Mr. Klinger, as far as the homeowners that pay 100 or less. So those numbers are accurate. Now, if you take 100 times the 3,708 homes, that's $370,000 that they pay towards that $13.5 million. The fire service assessment provides equity to all property owners and businesses. It's not just the property owners. The businesses need to pay towards this too because they are benefited by our fire services. It's a solid revenue source, takes us into the future, prepared to face any unexpected economic downturns like Greece. Economic downturn, that's a whole country. The EU just pulled that. How's that going to affect us? We don't know how it's going to be affected, but we need to set up something that no matter what happens in the future, we're prepared to pay our bills. Per case law, a fire service assessment fee must exclude the ALS, which I talked about, the advanced life support. You cannot use it for advanced life support. And we don't hire paramedics. We have paramedics because the city's smart enough to train our firefighters and encourage them to be paramedics by giving them a paramedic incentive pay. That's something we can't take off of this assessment fee. But that's to take care of our residents. We hire firefighters and we encourage them, as many that want to, become paramedics for us. So that is advanced life support. And the approximate portion, it's a little over 10 million. Like I said, my numbers are approximate. They're not exact, but I just want to give you briefing so you get the idea. But these numbers are out of the budget, so it's personnel services, and then the ALS expenses. That's the best we can come up with is 271 in ALS expenses. Now, that's for firefighters to be paramedics. That's their incentive pay, recertification, things like that. And then operating expenses, if it turns into an ALS call, how much of that operating expenses? Those are things we couldn't take out. And then I just showed you a little projection of a future ALS expense that we would be able to charge for, but we certainly need them to take care of our residents. Cardiac monitors takes a paramedic. So that's an ALS charge, but we need to look at that in the future, and if we'll add that, and we don't have a fire service assessment fee, okay, we're adding that, and now we're going to pay even more of that year. Well, we're $11 million when you add those in. But those are some of your expenses. And then some of your revenue that we get. A total of $131,000. Take out $3,000 for EMS standby. That's where the ALS football game. They were EMS and it turned into an ALS. Things like that. So it's not a lot of money. So far we've already collected $12,000 in our transport fees, but we've got those iPads, and I can tell you that's going to increase. I saw what Edgewater was getting because they use those iPads. The iPads are, I won't go too in depth with it, but they won't go to the next page on the iPad like we go to our agenda. They won't go to the next agenda page unless that page is filled out perfectly correct. So there's no problems with, oh, you forgot to dot an I across the T. You get paid when you submit them. So our revenue from that should go up.
Can I ask a
Last thing I looked
question?
at was 120-some thousand.
The fire impact fees that we're collecting 35,500 for, where are they from?
That I can't tell you, that's from,
New construction.
Construction.
That's from
New
Impact.
construction.
right.
New
So
construction.
that's new
New
construction?
construction, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no overlap between the two.
So that just is gonna be a variable every year
Every
depending
year.
on what we get?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then if you look at it, maybe I like to see it graphically, picture-wise, 3% of our budget is ALS, and over 10 million, 10,520,000 is firefighter related. Whether they're first responders, responding to a BLS or not, they're still firefighter related, they're there 24/7 for us. And then I broke down to, there's different cities, they broke it down different ways. Some of them charge square foot for their commercial and industrials. Others just charge the same fee. I just broke it down just for the simplicity of giving you a demonstration of what we're leaving on the table. Everybody paying the same thing. Plus, I think business shouldn't pay any more. I mean, they get an annual fire inspection every year. They're safer than our houses are. You put that house up 10, 20 years ago, when's the last time it was inspected? Yeah, the businesses are inspected every year. Some of them have sprinkler systems, alarm systems. They're more fireworthy than our houses are. But if you look at it just for simplicity, mathematics, because when we hire a firm, if we decide to go that route, they're going to tell us the best avenue to use, whether it's square footage or charge them all the same. It's got to be fair, and it has to be equitably apportioned between all of the ones you're charging, businesses and residents. So it's got to be apportioned properly and fairly. So they'll come back and tell us that, but then if they come back with, okay, you need to use square footage, do we establish a cap? But on myself, I think businesses are a lot safer than the houses are. But these are the type of money you could get at 50%, at $135 of an annual assessment fee. That would be 50% of the $10 million that we're over. And I know that's not exactly 50%. It's like 9 point, but I rounded off 50%. If we charge $135 to all the businesses, single families, multifamily, commercial, industrial, charge them all times the number of those we have in the city, then we come up with $5,139,000. Half of our budget. So we wouldn't have to take so much out of our general revenue fund. If you charge 70%, then you're talking $7 million. And if you have a little error in the advanced life support, we're not charging the whole 100%, so we don't have to be that exact on that ALS. If we spent $330,000 that year, it's okay. We're not collecting back in our fire service assessment fee. We're not collecting all of it back. Either 70%.
Something pretty self-explanatory, but we need it down to institutional religious.
Yeah.
government.
Yes.
You're gonna eliminate all of them from any tax.
That would be something that, and not tonight, just once Burton did a study, they would say, these things can be, what do you want to do, commissioners?
What does the county
So-
do?
Hmm?
What does the county do for their 4 mills?
I did not look at the county, all I know is they charge, I looked at vacant
I know they charge
land.
4 mills, but do they charge to institutional, religious, and miscellaneous, and other governments?
I can't speak for Volusia County because I compared to Polk County, but I can speak to theirs.
Okay. They do charge?
You'll see on that slide where they charge themselves. But it's just deciding on, okay, do we want to do it in the future, next year after that, and how much of it would you want to capture? But Burton and Associates, or whoever you hired, when you put your RFP or RFQ, whatever that is out, they could more tell you whether it should be square footage, whether you should or shouldn't, what do you want to do, Commissioner?
What's this based on, just acreage? You got commercial, is it acreage or?
I did not use the square footage at all. I charge them all exactly $135. Because if you use square footage, they'll wind up, some of them with just basic square footage could wind up paying $100. Some of them wind up paying $2,000 a year.
Okay.
Well, I don't think that's fair using square footage, but I would leave that to a professional firm to brief us on that. And then hopefully establish a cap if they went that route. But at least some people that own large businesses paying a hefty sum. And this is just a fee comparison. I would suggest 70% if, whatever Burton and Associates, but I suggested that for this briefing only, so you can see you could collect back $7 million, and that's with leaving out institutional, religious, leaving out the government building, tangible property you really can't have, the fire service assessment on tangible property. But as you can see, Polk County, they went for 94%. That's what they wanted to collect back. 168 on their single families. The commercial, they charge 21 cents per square foot. That's a lot. And then the other entities, Florida entities, are anywhere from 40 to 100%, depending on how much they want to capture back. 25 to, some of them pay 305. Single family.
That's all Polk County's numbers there.
Those numbers right down that column of Polk County, they charge
10
20.
cents for
Industrial
industrial.
square foot.
And
Yep.
49 cents for institutional.
Yep, square foot.
Religious.
And religious, 49 cents per square foot.
It doesn't look like the county charges a fire assessment on a church.
Yeah, vacant.
Volusia County, we're talking
about
Volusia County,
Volusia.
she's doing the research. So, you can see, we could capture up to 7 million of that. Right now, it's 10.5 million, 10,800,000 this year. Next year, it'll be up. We need to increase our benefits. The bill never goes down, it always goes up. Now, these are things, policy decisions. Once we were briefed by a firm, I mean, we used Burton Associates in Cape Coral's, defended that all the way up to Supreme Court, Florida Supreme Court. They did Cape Coral, and Cape Coral went to Florida Supreme Court, and that was Burton Associates. Lake Helen was done by Burton Associates. And then, one of the things I wanted to mention in here is, it's one of our long-range planning and strategic goals, the pursuit of supplemental and alternate revenue sources. And that's why we did that grant thing, it's in the capital, that's one reason we did the grant. And I got the upside down, if you ever looking at your CAFR, page 9, it shows the expenditures for our public safety, that's the fire and Volusia County Sheriff's Office, and then it shows our revenue. And you can just barely see that green revenue dot coming up over the line, but the expenditures goes over the $18 million one. So, to me, it provides a fair, equitable, portioned fire assessment revenue source. Once that we're properly briefed by someone that's got a good study, do we want to implement it or not, and if so, at what level? Will be a question. What do we want to do about vacant land? These are all things we'll have to look at, and they'll need to be prepared to brief us and give us a recommendation. Are there exemptions and caps? Federal government, do we exempt some of the state-owned properties such as schools? Do we exempt institutional, religious, nonprofits? And there's a lot to look at once they come back with a good study. Is the decision to charge by square foot, or do we establish a cap if we do charge by square foot, so they're not being outrageously charged? Save Our Home exemption application, like Palatka has, they have an application where you just fill it out each year. My mother had to fill one out. So when she finally gave up her house, she said, I can't take care of my house anymore. Find me an apartment. I found her Christian Charities. And every year she'd fill out an application and give them 3 bank statements so they could see, they could verify what her income was. And that's what they based her monthly payment on. And she started out with $147 a month at Catholic Charities and was down to $134 last year before she passed away. She's paying $134 because they looked at income to death. We can do the same thing. And you can take that out of your fire service assessment fee. Oh, great, something for another person to have to track. Hire somebody. You're talking about leaving $5 to $9 million on the table. Hire someone and take that out of fire service assessment fee to monitor and manage the program.
You lost me. I don't want to tie you up.
No, that's okay, boss.
Save Our Home exemption application. So you
Well,
don't talk about your mother, just talk about.
There are people here that have Save Our Home exemptions, like my wife's house that we're living in, she has $43,000 in exemptions. And so they can't afford to pay anything else. They're on Social Security. My mother made $870 a month. There's people here on Social Security.
They get an exemption for paying this fire fee, is what you're saying?
But they'd have to fill out an application. You just don't give it to them
I
because.
understand, every year?
Yes, just fill out an application every year. Give us 3 bank statements.
It's like the senior
Yeah,
assisted housing.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Well, by the time you take that off, because basically the people that you're saying can't pay it, they're.
Oh, no, that's what they have to prove. You're saying that. I'm saying there's people getting those exemptions. They need to give you the application and 3 bank statements showing where they get revenue from their dividends, from stocks, look at their revenue. And it's a good application. I look at Palatka, and Palatka's got a good application and a good process. So I did some research on cities that are giving them exemptions or just giving them a deferral, like Palatka's giving them a deferral. But when you sell your house, you will have to pay those years that you were deferred.
What happens if you die and you have a reverse mortgage on your house and it goes back to the bank?
Boy, you asked a tough question, I didn't look at
Just
that.
saying.
But if you
Well,
die,
reality.
yeah,
That happens here.
but if you die in
There's a lien
here,
on the property.
Be a lien.
yeah, there's a lien on the property,
There's a
so.
lien on the property, so you'd still get your money before they would.
Do we collect liens, like when there's liens on the property, does the city actually collect on those liens? When the property is like sold for a tax deed sale?
I can't speak all of Edgewater, except for I see Becky's liens where we collect on a lot of liens. Becky
All right,
collects a
we're
lot of
getting,
money
we're
for us.
getting
on
in the
liens.
weeds on this, but, yeah, there's a lot of questions. I don't like exemptions of any kind. You can help it, but some people are gonna be,
They're just strapped, but they need to fill out the application and show us that you're
yeah,
strapped.
there has to be some method to be able to save that.
But all those top questions are things we look to whoever we hired. I keep saying Burton because that's the last one that we've used, and they've done a couple past studies, but whoever was hired by the RFQ or RFP, whatever you put out, those are questions they'd have to be coming ready to answer. So the only thing today is, do we want to at least pursue the study, pay for a study, and let a professional do it, and see how much money we're leaving on the table, and maybe not implement it next year, maybe 2 years from now, 3 years. But all you do is brush it off. Once it's been done, and they've shown you this is what you're leaving on the table, you've always at least got that in your back pocket. Because I don't want to be like Blake Helen. And this one is, it's a fair, equitable, alternate revenue source. Sustains our residents' businesses' safety needs over the lifetime of the city. Because we provide them public safety. Deltona Fire Department, Volusia County Sheriff's Office, we give them public safety. We're not giving them financial security, financial safety by continually being upside down. And that was okay when we first were a baby city. Did you realize that? We're only 20 years old. And when we first started out as a city, this was the way to do it. Pay it out of the general fund. We were running $1.5 million upside down. Okay, pay it out of the general fund. We got other money in there. But as time goes on, we're getting further and further upside down in that. It's like being upside down in a car loan. You can't trade it in because you're upside down. Now we're $7 to $7.5 million upside down that we're taking out of the general fund to pay this bill, and it's going to get worse each year, more and more. I just think we should be more prepared and prepare than financial security. That would be. There was one that kicked the can down the road, but it's just like Lake Helen did. They kicked the can down the road until they were in a debt crisis. And some 3 guys standing there kicking the can down the road. They said debt crisis on the can. They kicked it down and they couldn't pay their fire bill, and then they had to come up with a fire assessment services fee. I don't think we should. There's another thing you can do, and it's like when you take a medication, one of the benefits of it was this, you're not taking it for this, but you get a benefit out of it. The fire service assessment fee gives you a benefit that you could reduce the millage, which I've seen other cities do. They've reduced the millage because now you've come up with this fire service assessment fee, and it's $185 more a year they weren't planning on spending. Well, you can lower your millage. That benefits the residents and it benefits us, because now we're not so close to that 10 mills. You can reduce your millage depending on what you implemented at, whether you implemented 50%, 70%. Then you could look at it and say, well, let's reduce 2 mills down and give ourselves a better cushion, so when there is a crisis, we can raise it up a mill or so, and it's not so close to 10. Right now, we're dangerously close to 10. 7.99 is not that far off from 10. So that's my pitch. I just think it's something that just a study is really all I was looking to get an okay. Should we go forward with a study or just wait till the 10 mills? I just think it's a good revenue source. We're leaving a lot of money on the
How
table.
much is the study gonna cost?
Question that comes up is
How about 35,000, maybe 50?
$35,000.
It's $1,000
It's
a
an
home.
increase in taxes to the public.
Would it be the same?
That's what they're gonna say. Go ahead.
Before we even go into a discussion what I'd like to do, I know we all got an email from Mr. Klinger, and I would like to hear from Mr. Klinger, because he had some comments regarding this.
With respect to,
The assessment, the fire assessment. As
I
far as,
probably need more of a specific
okay,
question.
as far as how much of a gain does it really do for our property people? Because the email showed us it really didn't.
Well, the announcement, oh, I'm sorry, could I answer that question?
Yes.
Okay, the email that Commissioner Schleicher's referring to is an email that was actually sent to the entire commission back in, I guess, February.
It was, it's an old,
Plus it was also sent again like this today.
right, it was an old assessment.
Okay, but the premise of that email was that we were going to be cost neutral, that whatever we would bring down in the ad valorem taxes, it would be spread out. So what was happening is you have a class who are paying nothing, and then you have people who are paying property taxes. So there'll be a shift. So those who pay nothing would now pay something. and those who are paying property taxes, it would go lower, but then they would have the property taxes plus the fire assessment fee. That was the premise initially, where it would be cost neutral. What we're hearing today is using the fire assessment as an alternative or an additional revenue source. So, which could help to bring down the ad valorem, or it's an untapped area
New
where,
source of revenue.
right, right.
Heidi?
Were you done?
Well, I knew this was an old assessment, but I was just curious as to whether it sounded like those month numbers may still be the same, that what you lowered on property values, or your property taxes, you're picking up with the fire assessment, so the overall
Right.
net gain is not that significant to most of the people.
It can be if you want it to be cost neutral, but if you're looking at it as an additional funding source, then those who, as I said, are paying nothing will pay something, and then also those who are paying property taxes will pay the fire assessment plus the property taxes.
It's an increase in tax.
It- it-
It's an increase in the tax.
It's another,
They pay
it's
nothing.
another
Okay.
taxing
Right.
revenue
So
source.
let me ask on something philosophically. When you make that shift so that those that were paying nothing pay something, and you want it to be cost neutral in total, the ad valorem reduction will disproportionately favor the higher value property.
Yes.
Right.
If they net to zero in total, it will not net property by property to zero.
Thank you.
Right, because
Heidi,
you're bringing
up.
down, and you're asking those to pay zero based on.
Well, and that's just what I was gonna say. I mean, basically what you're doing is, because initially, several years ago, I looked into this, because my whole thing was, we've had our discussions years ago about 4,000 homes not paying anything, how does that work? And, things were suggested that at least you get the first 25,000 exempted, and then you have to pay on something. But, the years that I've been doing this, and the people that I've been to visit under different things, and believe me, I look everyone's property tax bill up. Everybody's. When there's somebody that, everything is the first thing I do. And basically, in concept, it's a good idea. In concept, it's a good idea to say that everybody should be paying something. But if you're going to look at it, then the way I see it, you're asking now people to prove that they have a hardship, which is not, again, all that bad. But your definition of hardship is, that to me has got to be clear cut. Your declaration of where the fire assessment fee, does that have to go directly into the fire department? That has to go directly into the fire department.
Yes.
So that's a dedicated funding source. And then you're going to have to decide, are we going to take that money that we're saving and put it in the general fund? Or are we going to go ahead and bump up the fire services? And who makes that decision? And is it vary from year to year? Does it vary from commission to commission? I mean, how are you looking? But is that a solid binding decision, or is that changed from X? Because here's the state of Florida decided they were going to use lottery money for education, and that was great. But then until they took all that assessed money back, so.
That's exactly what.
Can I ask a question? What is the savings you're referring to? If it's cost neutral, what savings?
That's why.
Well, we haven't decided whether it would be cost savings or it'd be additional
Well,
tax.
if it were cost neutral,
Yeah,
it's a net
then,
nothing.
then it's nothing.
Right, but then what's the
What
point?
it does is what Commissioner Honaker
Well-
pointed out, is it gives you a buffer to stay below 10 mil.
But the way I see it again, what we're doing is, if you're going to go ahead and put on an assessment, but then once again you're saying we have exemptions, we have this, we have this, we have this, then can we do a lower assessment with no exemptions? Because again, you're looking at the people that you're saying that are paying nothing. If you start doing exemptions, you're back to 0-0. They're still not going to
That's
pay.
what the study would, we would have to decide what we want the study to show. But I favor no exemptions at all and make it a lesser amount. But the point is, if you're gonna have exemptions, then you have to have some regulatory body or someone to monitor all of that. And that's where it gets to be.
And to my last point, if you're going to go ahead and ding everybody with a $135 or $150 fee, fire services fee, but then you're going to lower the millage rate, 2 mills, for those people paying $199 or $50, that 2 mills is nothing for them. But now they have that added expense of paying, an extra $150. So my question is, what are you really looking at for those people that have a true hardship? And for, if they do have a true exemption, that's fine, but you're gonna find a lot of borderline people that's gonna ding. So I don't know, I just have a lot of questions.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, that's it. All right, Vice Mayor, and then Diane.
Like Heidi said, in concept, this is a very good idea in concept. There's a tremendous amount of decisions to be made in this process. We went through this, in my career, we went through this 2 times in Volusia County. And before it got to the ballot, both efforts were killed. And it was killed by all the people who were looking to recoup some money from who pay nothing today. Because originally it was like everybody's going to pay. Everybody's going to pay something. All the churches are going to pay, all the nonprofits are going to pay, all the low incomes are going to pay. Everybody's going to pay something. Okay? And then all those special interests, if you will, lobbied the elected officials. And before you knew it, it looked like Swiss cheese. Because you got right back to where you started from. And when you implement this and you give all those exemptions, all your administrative effort goes up. So you got to hire more people. It ends up costing you more money in staff and reporting time than what you're saving. Now, if you want to do this, the only way I support doing this is to have no exemptions, other than those that are provided by law. If there's a federal law that said a disabled person doesn't pay, I know federal institutions like the post office are exempt from it. Those are givens. But I won't build any exemptions. I won't vote to build any exemptions into this because it defeats the purpose of the new revenue stream. The new revenue stream is to capture the people that aren't paying today. And Chief Snyder's here, I'm sure he can back me up on this. Those are most of the people that use the services in many cases. So as you kick this can down the road, things that make sense to change rates on would be if you have a piece of undeveloped property, regardless of what the zoning is. Fire doesn't care what the zoning is. If it's an undeveloped piece of property, you're looking at, is it cleared, like the property around DeMarsh's Theater? There's no fire hazard on any of that property. Okay? Or is it heavily wooded, like looking out here on Track 16? That's a potential disaster. Okay? Don't worry, I'm over your head.
Everyone usually is.
Mitch mentioned,
And you gave her a flag, too.
Mitch
Well, in a
mentioned,
height situation.
Mitch mentioned you have people that have invested in their fire safety on the front end. Take a commercial building that has a sprinkler system and alarm system in it. Typically, the response to that from the fire department is less. And if there is an incident, most recently, I don't know if you saw on Facebook, you had a Walmart that somebody set off all the sparklers in the store. They set the sparkler display on fire in the store. The sprinkler system handled that fire. The issue was smoke, but the fire department's response on that incident was very, very minimal in terms of how long they were there and what they actually had to do. Versus, if anybody remembers the church fire down here on Providence Blvd by the Winn-Dixie, when the steeple got hit by lightning in the non-sprinkler building, we were there for 2 days. Okay? Or Trinity, when Trinity caught fire. So, do you give a break? Do you build a break in if it's a concrete block structure versus a wood frame structure? If it's sprinkled versus non-sprinkler? Do you use the square footage charge or do you use an occupancy factor? Certainly a call at the nursing home where there's a tremendous amount of non-ambulatory patients is a more intense response for emergency services than, say, something at Larry Kent's building on Deltona Boulevard at 2 o'clock in the morning that's unoccupied. So, if we go through this process, there's a lot of those things that we're going to have to discuss and establish. The other thing I want to throw out, I don't know, Becky, if this is legal or not, can we look at, if we're going to look at this, to me it would make sense to look at a public safety assessment fee.
You can't in
Can't?
Florida.
Okay. Because
I think
we
talked
did
about
the same thing with the sheriff's office in this and fund it the same way, but if it's not provided for.
I know, I
talked
thought
about
it
that
was
one
before.
before.
Everybody a chance to
They
speak
can't
on this
do that.
because we're going down. Diane was next, but Becky, do you want to
Yeah, I was
jump in
gonna say,
before?
Becky.
Oh,
Before
I just
that.
wanted to mention that in order to mitigate against hitting the extremely poor people too much, you can have it based on millage like Volusia County does. So it doesn't need to be a set amount, per household. So there are ways to address all these, just depending
Like
upon,
a
the
1 mil
standards
cap
we
or
put
something?
in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's different parameters. I think Diane would be next, and then you already got the scopes, I'm gonna speak, so I'm gonna let Brian, and I'm gonna go, and then I'll get you. Okay, Diane?
Okay, I have one question for Jane and a couple for Mitch. When we agreed to put this on the agenda, I think it was our last workshop, you said you needed some time to let staff review what Mitch was putting together. Are we hearing a staff recommendation tonight? Do you have a recommendation for us?
No, it really is a policy question because there was a change. Initially, the staff recommendation, if we were going to be cost neutral, the recommendation was that we not proceed.
Right.
But if we're now looking at it as an additional funding source, it really is a policy decision. We're at 7.99, all right. We're not in the same situation as Lake Helen on this, all right. Is the timing correct? Do we need an additional funding source? Do we need an additional tax? I mean, which is what this assessment is. It's a fee. So in other words, it is similar like, a tax, all right? And from my perspective, and Bob, you can jump in, I probably think that we're not at that point. Now, will we be at that point at some time? I think it's something that we probably need to review. But the question is that do you want us to spend the money, to try to get into all these nuances as to what is equitable? Because you are talking about charging, those who are not paying anything at this point. And so I look at it as a balance is, it's something that it's good to know, it's in our toolbox. Are we right? Are we pushed? And I don't think so right now. But should we consider it maybe later on? And I would say yes.
All right.
Thank you. Mitch, a couple of things. Do you know when you're doing your research, how many cities? I know you mentioned Lake Helen, you mentioned Palaca. How many cities actually charge this fee? Do you know?
It was about, they said 40% of the cities in Florida. 40%. I don't know.
In Volusia, you don't know?
Volusia, I don't know, I just know Lake Helen is,
Okay.
I thought they said was the first one that did it in Volusia County.
170 cities, 167, 167 counties.
Well, 67 counties.
400 some cities.
400 some
400 some cities.
Yeah, the largest one, city.
And can I,
Go ahead.
I just want to also mention, when we kind of discussed this with Burton Associates, they did say that this was a tool for thinking about the future. That as we talk about sustainability of the budget, it's something that we may want to consider. I mean, that was their point, and they said that those cities, the municipalities that had adopted this, they were at the brink. They were kind of like approaching the cap. Okay.
Another rate of tax.
Now, is that what you were thinking, Mitch? Were you thinking that perhaps you'd like to, because, it's been discussed in the past, to lower the millage? Is that some of the reasoning behind it?
When you don't establish it to lower millage, that's one of the benefits of it. You could, if you wanted to, lower the millage. I mean, you establish it just for the financial security of a city. We're never going to go away, and our bills are never going to go away, they're never going to go down. And we're like $7.5 million upside down every year out of our general fund. And just suppose something goes away, communication services taxes. We get $5 million from Duke and $3 million from FPL every year. They do over each one, but roughly that's $8 million. Suppose that money goes away because they lobby hard in Tallahassee for that to go away,
I hear you.
and we lose $8 million. What are we going to do?
Okay. Now, Palaca, you mentioned, you use them as the example for the deferments.
Mhm.
Do you have any idea what the percentages of
their-
they're only like 10,000?
No, I looked at their application and the requirements to
Okay, but you don't know.
do it, and then just read on it, it's a deferment, not an exemption, they still pay it. If they pass on and their property's sold, their lien kicks in and they get that money back. Or if the person just decides to sell the house and move, they pay it.
See, my problem is, I did look at the report that Mr. Klinger did back a while ago.
2009.
Well, no, I'm not talking about the last part, I'm
okay.
talking about the emails we received, over the last few months. My problem is, 78% of the people that are not paying ad valorem tax right now are low-income seniors, they're VA-type disabilities, or people that live in a very small home. To me, if I'm hearing no exemptions, so that means we're putting this tax on not only to everyone, but we're putting it on the backs of the people that could least afford it. And I think that's my issue. Yes, they can fill out paperwork, will they? That's why I asked about the percentage. I'm struggling with.
And at what level
these
you
are the-
implemented that?
What's
Just
that?
to get it going, and at what level you implement it is a commission decision. Well, let's recoup 20%,
Doesn't make any
and that's
difference.
$50 a year. Right now, 50% is $105 a year, so 25% is $50 a year.
I
And it
know,
depends on
but
how
we've
much you
also
save.
heard,
It's
we've heard it
$50.
loud and clear on tax fines, trash fines, that $20 is a lot of money to some of our families.
And it's not helping
Especially-
the upper ends that much either.
Well,
it's
so
not helping anybody.
I just am throwing those thoughts out. I
Concern I
I will listen to the rest of the discussion, but that's where I'm
And
struggling
I am
right
like-
now.
That's my concern.
Vice Mayor and the Mayor, I put the exemption on there just for food for thought for you, but I'm not into exempting anyone either.
All right.
That's my
You
concern.
said it in a
That's
brief.
my problem.
That's my concern.
Okay.
Okay,
Hey, the first thing I'm gonna start off by telling you, I own property just outside Deltona in the county, vacant land. I pay $227, almost $230 a year for that. It's a fire assessment fee. It's not 4%, it's 4.08.
408 mils.
Yeah, just for fire,
Yeah.
vacant land in the middle of a bunch of woods, I'm paying $230,
4 mils.
okay? I wanna back everybody up. Fire services is the largest line item we have in our budget, okay? I'm gonna challenge everyone sitting in front of me today to find me another city that pays more for fire than they do police. I couldn't find them. So I challenge you guys, I would love to find another city. I still think we're upside down on that, but what this does, no different than garbage, okay? We're talking about garbage, a hot topic. Garbage is a service. They dispose of your thing. I've lived in a city for 30 years. I've never used the fire department. Never used the fire department. I've been a landowner in here with multiple pieces of property since 1999. Never used the fire department. It's a service. Please understand that we keep talking about a tax. It's a service. And everybody should have skin in the game to provide the service. We just went through. I tend to drift to what he said. I would rather charge a $50 flat fee for everybody and say, every single person is paying this. And then ideally, you would raise and generate enough revenue that you could lower the millage rate. But what I'm going to say, looking at this, realize, guys, look what's going on in our world today. Okay, we don't know the stability of our world's market. I have a 401k. My 401k is plummeting. Our fire department, our fire department, we're guaranteeing them an 8% return. Okay. So realize that we have to, as mine gets smaller, I have to guarantee theirs. So that money needs to be there, or you have people who won't be getting their retirement or the pensions. All I'm saying is this then puts money. Everybody has skin in the game. Keep talking skin in the game. The people who aren't paying. Listen, my heart goes out to the low income, the senior citizens. But they're the ones who are actually using the service. I don't use the service. God forbid I ever have to, okay? I don't use the service, yet I'm paying for it. It's the largest line item we have in our budget. It's $10.5 million a year, okay? The other thing that frustrates me, because when you're only generating $12,000 off of transport, and I'm hearing we're transporting people 15 times or more a week, hopefully, the whole transport thing will start generating some more money. If with the iPads, who knows? But this, like you said, puts money over here. It helps alleviate an $8.5 million line item. I mean, $10.5 million line item, and everybody has skin in the game. There are no exemptions. The only thing I like is if you had a assisted living facility or some type of facility like that where you know you're going to get a lot of calls, you do a higher rate on them. But everybody else, it's a flat rate. Everyone pays. Everyone gets skin in the game, and then you go from there. But
All right. I want to say a couple things. First of all, this is a tax flat out. Since trying to call it anything else, we're taxing the people, period. And that's what you're going to live with.
It's a fire services assessment fee.
That's a technical term, but what you're doing is taxing the people.
Still
Now, if you were,
Still millage.
so is stormwater, and so is garbage.
exactly, but they're still a
Services,
tax.
but you're taxing
All right, we're gonna be, we all are intelligent enough to know what we're talking about. Yeah, it's a fire assessment fee. It's another fancy way government has of getting more money out of the pocket of the homeowners or business owners in the community, property owners. So we all agree on that. This fire district in this town survived, well, you were here. 2 mills. Well, yeah,
Years.
1 mil for a while, then 2 mills for a long time. What's the millage now? What's fire assessment millage? It's gotta be.
4.08 Lake County,
4.08.
4.08, 150.
So it's more than doubled since we became city. So that is not anybody's fault. Damn sure not any firefighter. It's the fault of the commission and how the times have escalated, the costs have escalated. All those things, and you're right on that. I agree with you, and you're right on that. I'm just saying, I remember back then, it's a different world now today. But this is a tax, we can't get around that of a sense. It's a revenue generator income. There are so many questions on exemptions and everything that I would want to work out before I would hire someone. And that's what your original question was, before we go any further, was do we want to hire someone? I don't want to hire Burton yet, not until we know exactly what we want Burton to study. I mean, if we're going to study a plan, we need to know what we're going to do. Are we going to replace this? Are we going to offset it somewhat with a reduction in ad valorem revenue? Are we going to put a cap on our fire department with this? Is this the money they're going to operate on? I know that's 100%, we're never going to do that, but we're going to have, I'd like to see some kind of cap. Your comments about it escalating cost, it's that way in everything, but it is escalating. It's escalating every year. So if we're going to do some kind of we've got to have something to give the taxpayers back. We've got to give them something. We're going to ask them to pay an amount, and I like the equity of everybody paying. I don't like the exemption ideas, but then there are cases which, we may have to have a social service agency help them with that if it's $50 or $100, whatever. But I just don't think right now, until we really drill down into this and find out exactly what we want somebody to study, because Burton will come in and take your PowerPoint, and from those questions, $30,000 or $40,000 for a study. I know you said you put it on the shelf and dust it off later. That don't work that way, because you're going to have to update it, and this county on water issues alone must have spent, since I've been involved in this in 20 years, we had to spend, I would say, $35–40 million studying alternative water sources in Volusia County. And there are studies on top of studies taller than Al is, sitting, the wave. I mean, how many millions did we spend on the wave, and then it just stopped like that? So I'm not in favor of a study until we know what the parameters are. I think if we could offset the taxes, bring our ad valorem down a little, I could live with it. I think it's an idea, it's a way to start. But I'd like to see how we play that into holding the line of fire fees and costs, because they keep escalating. And I don't mean by laying people off or cutting anybody's benefits, but we got to have a way to cap it. And if it's tied in with that, then I would say move forward. But currently, based on what I have tonight, I'm not ready to move forward. Heidi, and then
I guess my question is, or my comment, am I good? Am I up?
yeah, you're right.
My whole thing is, again, in concept, it's a good thing, and to say everybody should have to pay, I'm fine with that. But if you're going to lower the millage and try to make that up again, it doesn't work for the lower income people, number one. Number two, when you decide to do this, as we decide to do this as a commission, and you make valid points, Brian. I mean, everybody here has made valid points. Are we going to be strong enough to go ahead and say, this is going to be all-inclusive except for what is legally, that we don't have to legally do that? Are we going to have businesses pay a set fee? Are we going to have the government agencies or schools or everybody pay? And are we going to have churches pay? Because you guys just talked about two church fires.
We went through that fight with the water.
But I'm just
with
saying,
stormwater.
exactly.
And we
I mean,
made
at
the
what
churches
point,
pay. They didn't like it.
because if you're gonna go ahead and do this, and you're gonna make it fair and equitable for everybody, then you have to do that, except anybody that's legally exempt by law. Because if that's not gonna be the case, and you're gonna make a little guy that has had his Mackle home for 35 years, is under 3% Save Our Homes, is paying $150 in taxes or $98 in taxes, if you're gonna make him pay $150 or another $50, then you better make sure every business and everybody else pays their fair share, however you choose to do it. Because I won't vote for it if it's either gonna be all with a fairness, whether you do it millage or whatever, that's fine, but otherwise, I'm not in. I mean, I'm open to any discussion, but we're gonna have to make strong decisions to who is gonna be affected by that.
Okay, real quick, first thing is, I told you about my property that I paid $230 on. First of all, if that thing catches on fire, the county doesn't even provide service, Deltona does. So that's another scam on that thing, that just bothers me. Next is,
Now, wait a minute, you just made a statement.
That was
In the
thinking.
county fire service, they would call closest shooter response, and you're getting that.
yeah, there's not even a county close, you can't get a county truck here.
Well, yeah.
So, but going back to it, we're sitting here and we're asking, okay, do we want to move forward with a possible study? And I'm yes. Listen, yes. And every question that was just brought up today, I want them to answer. Those are questions I want to answer. Look, I worked at a school for 10 years. There's an ambulance or a fire truck that shows up twice a week for some reason. So if you want me to fight a minimal fee, a $25 or $50 assessment fee for the service that they're being provided, I got no problem saying that. But I think you need to look at alternative. Look around what's going on in this world. It's not stable. In my line of work, we see it coming before it's coming, and that's what I said. You need to be prepared. To me, this is not something you look for 3-4 years down the road. I disagree with the city manager on that. I think we need to be proactive now, and that's why you hire a study. We just had our consultant come in and try to give us a study on health insurance, and he didn't give me any numbers. At least Mitch brings up numbers and shows me numbers where I can see exactly what we're doing. I believe, listen, if this isn't valued at putting up a study, I don't know what is. I know you're saying, well, let's pick out what we want to. No, you hire them and then you tell them that that's what they do.
We've got to be able to, if we are going
You gotta
to,
put something there.
you got to put parameters on what you're going to study, because don't forget, you've got 80,000 people, almost 90,000 people out there that are going to read in the paper that we're anticipating a fire impact fee. And they will take Mitch's figures, and you did a great job with fire assessment fee.
Fire services assessment.
Oh, God.
Believe me, it's gotta be called that, you can't call it a tax.
Fire services assessment fee.
It is a
They are
service.
going to say, what are those 7 up there doing? They're taxing us.
Your goal is to lower the
It's a fire
millage.
service, well,
Well, that's, we don't know at what point this
that's
is even gonna
That's
do
what
it.
a study
exactly
has.
the point. You're gonna have to give them parameters. We're gonna lower the assessment fee, then you got finance back
Totally
there.
different.
Mr. Klinger's gonna say, okay, for every $150,000 you take in on the fire services assessment fee, I can lower the millage by X number of mills, okay? But then comes budget time, like we're in now, and we don't lower that because we need it for X number, Y number, this. Then you did a disservice, or you've almost, you're gonna be accused of a bait and switch deal where you've got the assessment.
Yeah.
But the point is, we gotta decide if we need that money, and if we need that money, then I'd say go for it. But I want the parameters set out before I talk about spending any money to do an assessment fee. Bob's got something important.
I want to throw something, I've been here a long time, I've heard talk
Yeah, go
about
ahead.
millage, lower the millage, lower the millage, lower the. There's one little oddity that you need to be aware of. Let's say, for example, you drop the millage 1/4 of a mil. How much money do you think Walmart's going to save versus a little homeowner somewhere? So there's always this pressure to lower the millage to help the little guy. It's not just going to get all the
No,
dollars.
it's just like, I don't know how many of you saw your emails today, or if you had a chance to check them, and Morgan sent out to finalize things. Our rollback rate, and I don't want nobody to comment on that now because we need to get into that and we read it, but it's 7.41 is rollback. So are we ready to go to 7.41? I don't even want to know, don't answer it, but that's what I'm saying. People look at that, and Morgan makes a big issue of that, and that goes out there, and it's chicken feed, like Bob said. It doesn't mean anything, it's sense to these people. But a hard and fast assessment fee is a number they can look at and they'll see. And so we gotta be careful.
Can I throw another commentary? Morgan makes a big deal out of our millage while he just added the new 77-cent fee to us.
Per thing, right?
Well, we're not.
This year's money,
Yeah, but how much is
We
that?
can't
How
beat
much
up.
are we
this
paying
year's
for that?
money, 1 mil equals
77 cents for
1.7%.
every non-ad valorem
That's how much
parcel
you
in the
reduce
city
by
per year.
1.7 million in
So
Deltona's budget. If you
Are we-
adjust the 33
okay,
home,
all right, I want to wrap up my comments and then I'll listen to Heidi and we'll talk with her. I didn't see that, I'm sorry. But what I'm getting at is, we can beat this to death. I don't want to move forward until, I don't mind a study, but I want to know exactly what I'm getting. If I'm going to pay, I've seen Burton and I've seen too many other consultants come in here and they'll do a study, they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Whatever you want to hear. I want them to give me facts on exactly what it's going to cost Mrs. Jones, who has a $45,000 home and Walmart. And I want to know exactly what it is, and I want to make it equitable. Those that can least afford it,
read the Cape Coral one.
You have to set the methodology.
that's what I'm saying. We need to talk about exactly what we're trying to achieve by this, not just bring money in. What are we trying to achieve? And I'll go to Commissioner Hertzberg, Vice Mayor, and then we're done.
I just have one final comment. You know, you want to talk about millage and lowering the millage and doing all that. Don't forget, this city was devalued by the property appraiser, 62% in 3 years, okay? It's a huge devaluation, and the only way we're going to be able to lower the millage rate is to have property values go up. And the only way property values are going to be able to go up is to clean up this city, make people accountable, and go ahead and raise the image of this city. Because when you drive through here and you see what some parts of the city look like, they're worth the $135 that they're paying, $135
this year.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
but
That's another
still,
subject,
but
guys.
you still look
That's
at
a whole
the,
different subject.
but
Wait till
no, it's
Thursday
not.
night.
It's not, because when you look at, you're talking about an income source. You're either talking about a replacement income source and lowering the millage, or you're looking at an additional income
What happens when that
source.
assessed value goes down in a couple of years? You think it's always going to go up? It's always going to stay the same?
No,
It goes up, it goes down a bit, and what happens when it goes down?
Okay, but the
Well,
point
What happened when it
point she's
goes
trying to
down?
make.
Fine, for, I pay $231 in city tax. I pay more in county tax on my property than I did for the city of Deltona.
Exactly.
That's what she
Because
just
of our value isn't there. And if we want to truly be able to lower a millage rate, the millage rate, you know, is only a multiplier on the value of the home.
Look at, yeah.
So, I
Go to
mean,
Ormond Beach. for-
take the
for
same house and
property
pop
that's
it into
here.
Ormond and see what they
Yeah.
pay.
Anyway, to make a long
Anyway,
story
say-
short, we have a lot of issues to sort out. Is that it, Heidi?
That's it,
All
thank
right,
you.
Vice
I'm
Mayor?
good.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I think that getting information is a good thing. I would be in favor of going forward with the study now in this coming year's budget. But we have to sit down and we have to set some parameters that they would put in the RFQ. And the reason I say that is, and this, just hear me out. We have another item that's even more important than this in my eyes that's on the burner, and that is the transport issue. On a daily basis, our citizens are having issues, emergencies. It's their emergency. Whether it's non-life threatening, whether it's not a valid emergency in terms of EMS, it's their emergency. They called 911. And we have invested money. We've seen fit to purchase transport-capable units in the city. We have trained personnel. We have the ability to transport to Fish, to Halifax, wherever the patient needs to go. But it's going to cost us some money to get into the transport business. That biggest expense is going to be in personnel. That's a reoccurring cost every year.
That's the ALS, right?
That's it.
No. It could be ALS, it could be BLS. It could be
Transport?
transporting a patient.
I understand,
Transporting
but
a
you have the
patient.
expertise, I'm not arguing, I'm asking you a question. Does it?
If we get into the
Put them in an
transport,
ambulance, is that ALS automatically?
No.
Put them in?
No.
Okay, it can be
No.
BLS.
no, it could be a kid with a fractured arm,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
Or it could be somebody that's in full cardiac
That's what I
arrest.
wanted to make sure.
The point is that we had said previously, we wanted to move forward with the transport issue in the city. That's going to cost us money. Now, we haven't set a timetable on that. I'm telling you, I feel there's urgency to it because the county is not providing the level of service that I want my family to receive. So, by moving forward with this study and funding the fire services assessment fee to take care of whether it's $7 million we generate, $5 million, $20 million, whatever we generate, whatever we set that bar at, that does free up other dollars in the general fund that can be applied towards moving forward with the transport issue if the commission is successful in getting the COPCN and if it's the will of the commission to finally implement that and make that happen. I don't want to box ourselves in. And we're boxed in at the 7.99. This is a new revenue stream. It's a revenue stream that would pay for an existing service. We could choose to lower the millage to offset it, but then if we decide we're going to jump into the transport business, we've got the ability within the millage to charge that additional millage and then give our residents free transport or give them whatever they can pay for kind of transport or a set fee type of transport like EVAC's using now. So I'm for moving forward with the assessment fee, but we need to have another discussion. Staff needs to do some research as to what the parameters are. We tweak that, we put out an RFQ, and we get the information back so we can make an informed decision when we see the numbers.
Okay, and I agree. If you look at just right now today, if you went with the 50%, you get 5 million, whatever the amount of money is. If we went to roll back this year, no, I'm only saying this hypothetically. You could go to roll back this year to save you so much. We institute the fire fee. You're showing the public something. The rollback then gives us room later for the go back. But that's what I want to set the parameters. I don't want to pay somebody to come in here and do this study. Let's look, if they're going to do a study, let's do a study in the whole thing. What's it going to cost us to do transport? What's it going to, let's do the study
That
while they're
wouldn't be
here.
in this fee.
No, it wouldn't be in that fee, but I'm just saying, do the study so we know the kind of dollars we're talking about. I don't want to, and I would say in next fiscal year, we could budget some money, but have a talk before next year. I don't have any problem if you want to move forward with the idea of putting it in the budget this year. So in 2017, yeah, so next year, we can then.
You couldn't
have
implement
another-
this year.
I'm not asking for the implementation. Oh, no, but I'm saying, put the money in next year's budget, and then we should have another meeting set up to hash out the parameters. Diane loves that, because on the way up here, she asked me, gosh, we haven't had enough meetings lately, and she would like to have a few more meetings before she left. So, but then we could have another meeting, you know what I'm saying, to just talk those parameters. I think from what I heard here tonight, most people are for no exemptions, straight out. I think churches, institutions, I guess an institution of higher learning or any institution is a nursing home. I used to be, I don't know, Chief, you could tell me, both of you, you're the chief though, but a lot of these, Deltona Healthcare and some of the other institutions, they get a lot of calls, don't they? I mean, you get a lot of calls from them. And they pay nothing extra. I mean, they.
I like what Heidi said, unless they're exempt by law.
Yeah, unless they're exempt by law, I think everybody should pay it, but I want to make sure that we don't try to deceive the public. This is an additional.
Well,
The city of Lakeland went through this, there's a big education.
Yeah, I think
and what did they do with,
Well,
what are
we'll
all?
see. Well, let me finish my thought, because I think you're gonna see that when we all agreed to go with the trash collection, how many of you are gonna be here Thursday night? Okay, be ready. 'Cause we all said we're sticking by the guns and we're gonna support
I got no
it.
problem.
Me
No
neither.
problem.
Well, let's be here and be ready, because I don't wanna take all the flack, because they're gonna be screaming and yelling.
Slide the mic this way.
Well,
You're
no,
just
I have no,
like-
I have no problem taking the flack, but I want support. I don't want somebody starting to, well, you know, we could do,
I'll even stand beside you.
We're getting input, and the same thing will be with this, what I'm saying. Let's not go into trying to, let's let the public know what we're trying to do. We're finding a better way to control
Educate.
our budget and educate people, and fire assessment.
Can
They
I-
had a whole
Assessment
education
fee
campaign.
is a smart way to do it, but we want to do it right. So are we in agreement to move forward with
I just
next year,
have
put the money in the
one more-
budget, but have one more meeting to finalize
I think
exactly
it should
what?
be discussed during the budget time too.
Yeah,
I mean,
oh yeah, we can.
But I mean,
But I'm telling her for her budget preparation that,
Put in an amount, I'll put in an amount.
I have a question. All these cities that instituted the fire services fee, what did they ultimately do with the revenue? Where did the revenue go? Did it go back in the fire department? Did we lower the
It has to
millage?
go to
Did
the
it use
fire
that?
department.
Yeah,
It has to go to the
no, but I'm saying, but I
Also, I
mean,
did
no,
not
no,
look at their,
but was it a replacement or was it an
I didn't look
add-on?
at their,
Or
what
was
they
it a millage
did with
reduction?
that. I know Lakeland did it because their
I-
services, their public
that's the
safety
whole
is
point.
$50 million. So
A
they,
lot of them are really that high level.
that's why the
they
state
had
put
to
a
do it.
10 mil cap, because politicians
It's a
That's different for
combination.
us.
will just keep
Yeah.
raising it till you
It's
get
a
to that
Not
10
at
mil.
the 10 mil cap right now.
It's like the what is it, the lottery tax? It was supposed to all go to schools, so what did the state legislature do?
They
They
got
kept
federal
throwing that
funding.
money away for other things, so.
Well, and that's my
And
point,
that's what
exactly.
could happen here if we're not.
Exactly,
diligent.
well-
It has to be.
it's like, you ask the other cities, Lakeland did it because their public safety budget was 56 million, and they only collected, they were upside down big time, 21.9 in property taxes, 21 million in property taxes, and their public safety was 56 million. They did it the same reason, it's just not fair and
Well,
equitable
it's-
to pay all
it's-
that money and not.
Your idea, I think, has merit, it's just that I don't, Diane's a bigger for the same process. I wanna make sure this is clean, the public knows exactly what we're doing, and what is our goal? What are we trying to do? Are we trying to raise more money, or we're trying to say what you did? We're trying to protect our future, and we're trying to make sure that we have a dedicated funding source that's not gonna fluctuate with the economy. If we have another blast,
Oh, yeah.
last 2 days, I don't wanna make Brian really get nervous, but the last 2 days, the average 401K lost almost $7,000
Yeah,
in 2
you
days.
don't know.
Yeah, I know.
When you look at the
upset,
Green
but-
County, you look at
And that's the
Puerto Rico's
other-
debt.
Ready to collect it yet.
Puerto Rico's
I was
debt,
hoping I
look at
was.
the United States almost defaulting.
Okay, we're getting off the
China.
subject, but, all right, we're all willing to move forward down.
I don't know, I mean, you can count
placing
me out, I
the
don't know
money-
if I wanna move forward.
No, I mean, placing the money in the budget for potential study next fiscal year, but not until we meet and decide what the
I'm a yes.
guidelines are.
I mean,
I mean, yes.
Diane, go ahead.
It's a procedural question.
It is.
We're taking official action right now by saying yes, 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 yes,
No,
yes.
no, no.
Are we putting, we're not?
We're asking staff to
They're
put
asking
money
a
aside.
consensus.
Are
so
we
she
putting
can
it
come
on
up-
an agenda,
I'm sure
a
she
public, are we putting it on the next
Absolutely.
agenda? Or the agenda after that, so that the public hears
this is
what
an
we're
agenda.
No.
Okay, it's a workshop.
This is
a
I'm
notice
talking
of
about a
agenda.
regular commission meeting.
No, Diane.
Our operating guidelines say no official action. To me, by saying yes, 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 yes,
Official action.
it's not official action by,
We're all-
okay, I'm
Doesn't say
not
no official
voting.
action.
We're only asking
This is a
the
noticed
city
agenda
man-
meeting, we could vote here
Wait a
if we
minute,
wanted
sir.
to.
No, we can't.
No. You can. But here's my point, we don't. Deltona doesn't.
We
All we're
don't.
doing is
We don't.
asking the city manager, we're just asking the city manager to put this in the budget for potentially use next year.
And then we'll talk about the budget.
Then
Well, that's-
at budget time, we'll talk about each one of these line items. We're not.
So
making
we're
a
not
decision.
going to put this,
We're
on
putting-
an agenda just
No.
to say we've had this
No.
discussion?
No,
Okay.
no.
No,
My understanding, all you want me to do is put a line item.
in the
And
budget
so- and then
for
when we talk
potential
about-
study on a fire services.
But at what point are we voting yay or nay on whether or not we want
Yeah,
this study?
whether you want
At
the
what
study,
part
I'm
of
not
the
sure we want
legislature?
the
When you
next.
talk about, when you approve the budget, and
When
we
you
talk
approve the
about,
budget,
do you
we'll
want to
talk
put that
about
in,
that.
do you
Well, just
want
because
to?
it's in the budget doesn't mean we're going to spend it.
No.
After it's in the budget, then we have another meeting where we set the, if we decide to move it forward from that point, we have the money to pay for it.
Right.
Just because it's in the budget doesn't mean we're necessarily gonna do it.
I'd say if we were to vote tonight, Diane.
Well, you're actually giving me
or if
direction
we
to
told
put
her-
it in the
Yeah, we're
budget.
just giving you direction. If we were to vote tonight, and let's say 4 of us said we don't want a part of this, well, it would be done, because her direction would be, don't do anything else. At least now we're telling her it's still on our minds, put it in the budget, and then we'll talk about it further. So we're really not voting on it, we're just telling her, put a line item in there. Because I'm not ready to spend a nickel. I want to see the parameters of what we expect to get out of it and what's going to replace it. Where's the money going? I just said exactly what I'm concerned about. If we're going to put a fee on the people, then what are we, where are we taking it away? Or is this just an added fee? Okay, are we comfortable now to move forward then?
I'm still a no on it. There's too many unknowns.
I go to
I mean,
line
I
item,
want
but I'm not
I'll
gonna
do
approve
it
at
provided
this
it's a
point.
complete study with large enough
Right.
parameters to assess every question that's asked here. Otherwise,
That's-
no, so I'm not
That's what we should
comfortable.
have, that's what we all.
That's what we
But
are
I mean,
doing.
we're not gonna box this in. So until that is clear, I'm gonna say no today. I'm gonna make my decision when it's a budget.
Well, the
That's
majority
not
wants you to
answering.
put it as a line item, and we would like further discussion on the parameters of the study prior to any money being expended. Or before you even contact anybody and talk about it, whatever. Just put a line item in there at your educated guess based on prior studies. Okay, the next item on the agenda tonight is implementation of compensation classification study. Mr. Adams, Jane, you want to move forward? Have you got your notes done?
Sure. Jay had asked me to talk a little bit about the compensation study implementation. When I came on board, obviously, you were all aware of the compensation study that was done. You all have seen copies of it. And when I came on board, I did evaluate it, looked at all the parameters, looked at all of the studies, and all of the background information as well. I pretty much delved into this compensation study as deeply as I could in the last couple of months, and my recommendation is that I feel that it's a fair and equitable study. I think that we need to implement the study. If we don't, some of the issues that come about is we're already a little bit out of market on a lot of our positions, and if we want to remain a competitive city and attract quality people into our board, then we are going to need to be competitive. And in order to remain competitive, I think that we need to implement the study in full as they recommend. Looking at the job duties, descriptions, and what the jobs are, what the classifications are. Again, I feel that they did an exceptional job, and there's really nothing in that portion of it that I can argue with. The only things that's in the study that I would question would be some of their recommended policies, and that's when they kind of spell out how we would do raises, how we would do promotions and or other types of changes to compensation, and the amount of time that we would qualify individuals for, like new hires, as far as user study. Those recommended policy things, I think they would need to be tweaked or kind of talked about a little bit more, but as far as the actual implementation of the monetary section, I believe that we need to move forward with it.
Okay, having been involved in a lot of these over the years, I like what you say, but I'm concerned about our decision, if you will, tonight to tell you to move forward with. I think the monetary part of it, if you're comfortable with studying, Jane, you're comfortable with studying, I don't have a problem with that, but it's the other ones that have a lot of bearing on that. That has a lot of issues with the points you make without going line by line on that. Has anybody done our view versus the consultant's view on some of those requirements they're asking for, or suggestions they're making for implementation, for advancements and things like that? There's some disagreement between what the HR director just mentioned and what we've had discussions. Is there anything in there?
Well, let me put it this way. I'm sure that all the department heads have this, all right? I'm not really sure whether they've actually had any one-on-one discussions with the employees. This study was released as part of a public records request, so everybody had access to this. I have heard a couple of comments that they disagree with the study. I think with any study, you're going to have some individuals or some positions where an adjustment is warranted. You're also going to have some disagreement where the position, according to the study, there was no, in the consultant's opinion, any merit to making any type of adjustment. So I think those who probably are making an adjustment are probably very happy. Those who are probably eliminated or not mentioned are probably saying, well, why not me?
Well, that's obvious. What I'm getting at, though, is some of the recommendations, if we give you a green light, are you going to follow the recommendations, or are you going to modify some of the recommendations? Or when you say approval to move forward with the study, just the financial aspects of complying with the study, or are you accepting all of their suggestions as the rules of the road for us?
To me is that I think that if you're going to adopt, you need to adopt in totality. Otherwise, you start opening doors to picking and choosing, like, yes, this, no, that, or whatever. And at some point, if you start modifying it, are you actually changing the recommendations as a consultant? So my recommendation is that, yes, that we adopt the study in full with the recommendations by the consultant.
Okay.
And that would mean that, in general, those who have been identified in adjustment, they receive that adjustment as identified. Those who are not, there would be no adjustment.
Okay, Commissioner Sukup. I'm sorry, Pittsburgh, I sit behind the model.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I, you good?
Yeah, go.
Okay, so, maybe we're aware that, or maybe just ask a question. The employees that are the positions that are being brought up and their compensation raised are mostly at the low end of the scale, correct?
That's correct.
And I remember Dave Denny, who I respected very, very much for his knowledge and everything else that he did here. We talked a long time ago about Deltona Water and employees there, and a lot of the commentary was the reason a lot of our lower end employees, they would come, they would get our certification, they would stay a year or two, and then they would leave somewhere else because we didn't pay. We were notoriously low in paying and had a personnel turnover continually because of that aspect. And if you want to grow your city and you want to grow your people, you can't always be at the low end. And because this study affects a lot of the bottom tier of the employees, I support bringing that level up, because in the long run, what you look at, when you're going to continually turning over people, you're paying for the continual training, and you're consistently, because you're not paying at a decent level, having to retrain, and you don't build any depth, you don't hold your people. So there are some things I don't agree with or I'm not comfortable with, but as the city manager said, the employees wanted this compensation classification study, correct?
Yes.
Staff wanted this. And a lot of times when you want something, you have to be prepared for those numbers to come in or that study to come in and maybe not be what you thought you're worth or what you might want to get. So I agree with the manager, it's all or nothing. And because of our history at the bottom end of the tier, I definitely support. And I also support the manager and the HR director's way that they want to change the way you have your evaluations and everything. I feel like everybody is, a lot of times in any business, is rubber stamp, yes, 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 yes. And the way I think you've changed things up and how you're determining factors of raises and everything, I think that's good.
Can I also comment? 57% are field positions, 22% are office positions. About the other 21% that's left is about managers and supervisors, and I think 1% is a director. So if you look at the numbers, basically 79% of this adjustment is for the lower paying positions. And it also assumes that we also implement the 3%, increase as well.
All right, Vice. You think you're done?
First thing, the company that did this summer, do we know if they've got some cities around here?
I went on their website, they did do some, I can call it up quick, they did
Okay.
do some local, Daytona Beach, I think was one. There were several locally and in Florida.
Okay, and so I'm to understand that there's nobody on the high side here? Everyone's on the low side?
Of the adjustment,
Yeah.
for those that were recommended adjustment, it's only on the low side, yes.
So the people that were on the high side,
They're not going down.
they're not going down?
No,
And
no,
you're still gonna give them a 3% raise?
that was, yes, that was the recommendation. The study did not look at those who are beyond what you would consider, I guess, the range. The purpose of,
But there,
I thought it was
there's, if you're at your maximum range for that job description, I think it's the question you're asking, right?
If you're at the top of your line, you're still gonna get a 3% raise?
as long as you're within that range. Once you reach
Once you max out.
of that range, your cap, you will not receive any raise.
And then,
You'll be frozen.
I-
And that's the same
That's-
policy that we have right now, that anybody who is, beyond their grade level, within that range, if they're beyond it, they're frozen.
because, when I talked to her today, and Rich today, I said, let's just look at the supplemental benefit comparisons. When you look at supplemental benefit comparisons, first of all, why are you comparing me to Orange City? I mean, DeBerry's not even there, DeBerry's more people in Orange City, but why do we not put a Sanford or a Oviedo and some of the larger cities that are more like us when we do a comparison than some of these little tiny cities that we're doing? So that was just one of the things. But, I mean, there's certain things over here, I don't know. If I'm for it, it's like I'm for a majority of it, I'm just not for all of it.
And I agree with you.
I'm for most of it, I just don't agree with
I
all of it.
agree with that, but
Well, it's easy, yeah, and it's true. You have to, that's why I wrote total implementation on it. You can't be for part of it, because what you do then is you defeat the whole
That's-
purpose of the study.
that's
And
what I'm
that's
saying.
what I'm saying. We
Why
hired
an
an independent
person-
third party.
Yeah, and the HR director's gone through it. I mean, you've studied it.
And if we start picking and choosing
Right.
out of what we're gonna implement or
Then
not.
you have anarchy.
No, it is, it would be anarchy, and, we're opening ourselves up to discrimination complaints. and,
lawsuits.
And lawsuits, and, why are you picking me and not this one? So it's either all or nothing.
Yeah, that's basically it.
well,
I'm sorry, I missed who was
I
next.
think
Was
it's
it
Nancy
Diane
and
or
Mitch.
Nancy?
Okay,
Go ahead, Nancy.
I read, obviously I highlighted this thing, went through quite a bit, and I really have to agree that bringing these bumping our lower ones up 100%, we have to do to stay within the market. The question I had was when they had the major recommendations, clear at the bottom of their list. Well, if we're looking at the budget, are we also looking at those additional personnel that they were talking about? That's the events manager, which you talked about, an inspector's position, the park maintenance position, the city engineer, an additional person for the HR, and of course, possible additional 500. Are those already included in the next budget? Are we going to be looking at that as far as part of?
Yeah, because that's plan B of what my next point is.
Yeah, and let me
I
also,
noticed all those.
let me also clarify, is, I was just talking dollars right now, okay? So in regards to the amount,
It's
that's
those
what
major
I'm referencing is that the new grade levels, as well as where somebody should be within that grade, all right? There were also, we also had some recommendations on some positions, okay? And those positions are being addressed in the budget, okay? We have in the budget the events manager. We're talking about changing the position. The inspector is actually not construction services, actually building services, so there's some language, but I think we know what it is.
The point I think that's trying to be asked of you, Jane, is very simply, these are called in the study by the major recommendations. those were in discussions with you on what you
Not
all
from a
had
consultant.
planned. I mean, they didn't come up with those ideas, those came up through discussions with staff on what we had planned and budgeted anyway.
Right,
So if that's what the question was.
yeah.
But
Well, that's what-
no, what I'm saying, what I'm asking though is, if we're approving the compensation, which I am
We're-
100%
we're
for, are we
including
adding these people into that or
Total
not?
implementation
Well,
of the
is that,
study.
but that's my question, she's asking what, is that
This
the
is
consultant?
an
Because
additional
putting
recommendation.
an event manager ahead of most of our assistants, is that the right thing
Well,
to do?
I have no problem with this, but I'm just wondering if all these ones are included into
They're
that. and-
included in the study's final executive summary, which you have, and that's what we just talked
So
about.
we're approving the salary
We're,
of all
And,
these people?
and the additional personnel.
we're approving the additional personnel.
Okay, that's what I need to know, is if additional
That's
personnel was
what,
part
but
of this
that's why I
approval.
want you to be clear,
Well,
that's what
well,
we just said.
let me also say that,
Based on
remember,
any changes we make later.
as far as personnel, that was at a very high level, all right? It was not an in-depth analysis as it was in regards to the salaries and where somebody should be in a grade level. Now, there are going to be recommendations for staffing, and actually, it's going to be more than what was in this study, okay? There are some other additional positions, all right?
Well, that's it, that'll come up in the budget.
That's,
Okay,
and,
well, that's what I
and
wanted
I,
about
and
these
actually,
ones.
I was going to segregate when I said, and that's why I said my clarification was the dollar amount in regards to the compensation. But I think we need more of an in-depth discussion in regards to the personnel, because there are additional personnel that I would be
That'll come up
requesting
during the budget
beyond.
anyway.
Right.
So the dollar number we
compensation
signed,
we're
like the event
okay.
manager is
Right.
not, we're not agreeing to that right now.
No.
Okay.
We're okay, but the compensation is one thing, but these other personnel are not, but I don't think that's necessarily in this completely.
Right.
That's what I want to
And
make sure
if-
clear,
and if-
that
That's
you're-
like
that's
we
not
put
what
it
you were
in the
saying,
No, well, no,
and that's what I
the
make sure it's
question
not.
is, it's total implementation of the study.
And that's why I said, wait a
Other
minute,
compensation.
in regards to the compensation, that's why I said,
Right.
let me clarify
Yeah,
that. Because
compensation only.
I don't believe that what we should do in saying, all right, well, this position, it should be upgraded, but this one not. We either upgrade them as identified within the study or not, all right? And that we say that we accept that they're in whatever grade. Now, in regards to additional staff, I want to have another discussion on
Well,
that.
that's why I want to make sure that we were not actually, even by saying yes, we're doing it, we're not really doing the bottom part, we're doing the compensation.
And also, the focus point of the study was not on position. It was something that was looked at, it was,
Current position.
it was really more of a cursory recommendation. It was
Is
the
that all you
focus
had?
of the salary.
Is that all you had, Nancy?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we were talking about just the salary and not this other part.
Ladies first.
You know, this was such a comprehensive study, and I'm disappointed that Mag wasn't here tonight to walk us through it, to tell you the truth. We hire consultants, just like Tetra Tech and the folks that deal with our bonds, and these folks aren't here to answer our questions. Yes, you know, I'm not questioning your interpretation, but I would have loved to have asked them some questions about, like, mine is marked draft all over it. Now, to me, even though we have to have discussion about this, this should have been a final report to us. Is this the final version, the one you handed me back a month or so ago? Is this the final version? Nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
I
This
have
would be
draft
the
on
final
I have
version.
draft
Would-
over every page.
I don't have gap on any of mine.
Well, you must
But
have
it's-
an older copy.
No, but it is a draft one. This was the one that was handed out.
First, the first one,
So did you get another one?
we sent the other one out after someone requested it.
With the names on it.
with
No,
the
mine
names.
doesn't, I don't think it's had a
You
name.
got a hard copy of it? I did not.
No, it was only,
Oh, but that was just sheets. It wasn't the entire report, I don't think. It was
It was a
individual
follow-up
files.
question.
Yes, I read
Yeah.
those. I did, okay.
Right.
Okay, if there's, so the ones that were in Dropbox, those individual files, not an actual report, that's what you're considering the final, not what you gave me.
It was the one that was dated April 27th.
Okay,
we
so
talked
that is
about.
the final.
That,
not the-
if this commission adopts it, if you have other comments that you're not happy with and you want to make changes, I can incorporate those changes if we agree upon those changes.
Well, it's just,
Dang it.
No, that's what
no,
she's
that's,
getting
I
at,
think,
Jane.
what I have.
She doesn't
Mine
want us
says
to
April
make
27th.
comments. What she's saying is, the final document that we paid for there should be a final document.
Right.
Well,
do you have a
the
copy
one
of the
that I
final
was
document?
handed says draft on every
See?
single page. That's,
I know where you're coming
I
from.
read those individual files, but it
But it
wasn't a
wasn't
report like
incorporated into a
this.
final document.
Okay.
And, yes, and there have been no changes subsequent to this. This is the consultant's recommendation, but they wanted to put it on as draft until they had input from the
What's the name
commission.
of the company?
But why are they not here?
Mag.
Why are they not here?
Mag. They should have.
Everybody else comes in,
I've
why are they
never
not here?
had a study where they haven't given you a final completed copy after they've presented it, talked to HR, talked to you, then they come out with a final report, and here it is, it's got everything in it. They've never done it before. I've never seen one come out like that with a draft form and then additional stuff and not incorporated into a final.
Well,
Because we don't know what's the truth, or what's missing, what's not in there.
Well, I
What-
was really,
What do
you know,
mean
I,
it's missing?
well, I
I'm
went
not
through every
sure.
page of this, and I do have some questions, like this, page 2 of 32, it was the report settings. It talked about the calculation parameters. I would have liked, and maybe you guys can explain it to me. I don't know what necessarily all this means. Set years to reach grade mark at 5. I would assume that means 5 years till I reach the market value of my position. Is that correct? And then set years to reach grade maximum 30.
Yeah.
So that's 30. They were basing this report on 30.
Working 30 years
Yes.
instead of
But
10
we're
or
20.
20. Yeah, exactly.
So why did they use a number 30? Did we question them on that?
It was said that that's very common, that you could either use 20 or 30 years, yes.
Even though none of our employees,
No.
Well, the
Where-
firefighters are here, some of them 30 years.
but we're 20 years
Most
as a
people are,
city.
really.
Some of them since before there was.
Right.
The
Oh,
pension-
so it doesn't
gasoline,
start
the
as
pension
when we're a
is- the pension
city?
is 25, basically set at 25
as
years, you
to-
can work longer.
It doesn't mean that you have to stay in that position for the 20 or the 30 years. What they're saying is that,
You'd read.
People in FRS.
Okay, so
Yeah, but your range is higher at 30 than it would be at
Your
20.
top in 30 years, or 20, however you want to do it. But you go from the minimum amount in that grade classification, it would take you 30 years to get to the maximum.
No, but you're hitting the nail on the head. It's a larger number, so it skews all the numbers to the high side and not to the low side. You're dead
okay,
on.
because that's, that,
What-
no, what it does is it's just saying is that this is the, what they believe is an acceptable pay range, so that we're not having individuals cap out and be frozen.
Can I see a 20-year? Can I see a 20-year
did
number?
they only did 30? They didn't do like 10, 20, 30?
No, all I got was, the recommended was 30 years,
That's what they recommended.
recommended, yes.
But what's this one right here that says 20 years over, under? and then
Yeah,
one says
that
30
was
years
one of
over,
the
under?
extra sheets. That was one of
I see
the,
120.
we have so much paper. There
It
was
says
a
20
20
or over
and
under.
30.
I mean, listen, literally these things are 2,000 pages in here. That's why I said, that's why I would love to talk to the consultant and ask her, but she's hitting the nail on the head. What my question was, is the ranges were so high. Some of those ranges were out of the park, and that's why I said, who in the world's going to pay that range? Until I saw that there was a 20-year, and I don't know why we did a 30-year.
Diane, do you have more?
I know. And I'm just skipping over. I'll go back so that I can give her, you know, it's not that I'm not in favor of making sure that our least compensated folks are treated equitably. But I also want to know that our folks in those mid-level to high range are treated. And I'm not sure, you know, we just said, how much is it, 70-something percent, did you say, is our low-level?
Yes,
79. But, you know, I want to know, are all like positions, because it was very difficult for me. That's why to tell you the truth, I assumed they were going to be here tonight. I was kind of surprised. I thought the gentleman in the back were the gentleman from this company. But, like, are the deputies, and I know longevity and all comes into place, but in general, are our deputies all in currently in the same range, or
Yes.
are our managers, our assistants, everyone is basically,
They looked at every single position. So the whole point is are we compensating our employees adequately? And the study came out is that there's a certain percentage or a certain grade that are not being compensated accurate. And I'm just talking about in regards to wages. I'm not talking about benefits or anything. I'm putting that aside. But
into account.
So you're saying our captain of police makes the same as our fire chiefs?
No,
No.
We have no control over it.
But I'm just saying, she's saying it's in the same bucket, but I don't think it's even close. I think Eric makes way less than that's fine.
Well, but that was not part of this. I mean, we're talking about,
But she's asking, are we similar, the same buckets to our public service? And I'm saying, no, Volusia County is way lower than what we are.
That's, but that's not gotta be
that's not gonna help
nothing to do with this.
So what it does, if
But
it's
it's
20 or
all
30 or
included
50,
in
or
the
just
study,
give me the numbers
John.
for myself.
Well, go ahead, let other folks, but I don't know, I'm just really discouraged that they were not here to walk us through this tonight.
Let me say something, Jay, because you're relatively new. In most cases, when a consultant does a study, they do a follow-up ending study. They did it with you all, with staff, and you. They didn't do one with us. They didn't come in and go down through the study and explain the intricacies of how they did it. Some of us that have done a bunch of these, it's unusual that a consultant didn't come back and give a full-fledged report. That's basically what you're getting at, isn't it, Diane?
And it
Yeah.
says in here that they would talk to city commissioners. Yeah,
I don't,
I'll
did
find
they talk
it,
to
but-
any of you?
No.
No, they didn't talk to anybody.
Maybe it was
That's
in
something
the
to put
bid.
in your
No,
bag of tricks for next time. They did a poor job
Communication.
on communicating this to the elected officials who ultimately are responsible for making the decisions. I mean, we have to trust our staff to tell us, and I heard you loud and clear, and we've talked about it before. I've been through it before, but they did a very poor job of keeping us informed of what they did. And we
and
ultimately
you know
have
what,
to make.
I will take responsibility for that because it was something that I had not advised staff, so I forgot, you know what I mean, to ask for the consultant.
Well, no,
to
I'm
be
just
here.
saying in the future, we
No,
want
no, no,
to
but
know
that's
before, we gotta
me,
make a
because
decision
I
on
forgot-
something we haven't been
I
able to
forgot
ask.
to ask staff.
The
and remind
architects
them
are
to-
not here to tell us how they built the building and not why we're wanting to prove it, so. Anyway, Mitch is next, and then we go to Brian, and then we'll move on to the next subject.
And it's like you said earlier on the fire assessment fee, you wanted to get
I
together
didn't say
before
that
the,
here.
before the, you wanted to get together before we put the RFQ or RFP out. And so we could set some parameters. Did I miss a meeting where we got together before we put the RFQ or RFP out on this?
We asked to have this done.
But did we put?
Now, did we have
Did
parameters?
Did we sit down at parameters?
Did you want to?
Yes,
Well,
because
why didn't you ask somebody?
we never had, did you say we're gonna have a meeting? Did this
No,
ever
I
come up?
didn't, I don't make those decisions.
No, that's what I'm
We,
saying.
we authorize staff to have a study done
I don't
to
know.
balance our.
But you did, you put it
I'm
in the
just saying,
budget.
was it
budget?
Was that the thing?
We budgeted for the fire service assessment fee, but we haven't gotten together.
But
No,
We
no, no.
budgeted for that.
We did.
Budget
You
for
you
the-
It was a
approved
line
it.
item in the
It was a
we
line
approved
item.
it. No, I mean,
They
we're not
said
approving
break it
it.
into budget.
Anyway, okay, so
If you'd have
We
wanted
never put
it,
parameters.
so if you'd have wanted
Anyway,
it, ask
told
for
her
it.
manager to
Okay,
execute.
a parameter of a
She asked to execute.
compensation study is your hourly wage with benefits. You just don't look at your hourly wage. Take it from a personnel officer, you look at your hourly wage, you add the benefits in, and this is how much you actually make per hour.
You
Yep.
could.
When you charge for a public records information request, you charge your hourly wage with your benefits added in, and the HR gives you, this is what
We
you make
agree
with
with you. What
benefits.
point are you trying to make?
This is earning hourly wage. I want
Right.
to see what
Their
it was with
study.
benefits.
There's, you didn't
Because
ask me if I was
we pay for-
happy with the way the study was done. You asked me if I
We
if I
pay
agree with the.
for health benefits for our families, 50% of health benefits. No other city does that. And when you look at what our salary is with benefits,
It's way on the chart.
Yep.
whoa, this, I
Okay.
love our employees, they're great, but we didn't do a good job with the survey. It's not comprehensive, and it's not in-depth, because we did not look at their salaries with benefits and compared to other cities. A city I just worked at went through this and did the step, and they looked at the salary with wage.
We did not
With benefits.
set parameters on it. I agree 100%.
And one of their major
When I
findings in
read
here
it, yep.
is benefits provided are consistent with other communities. However, healthcare costs are going to be relatively high in the city. It's right in this major findings, and we're comparing it without the total salary. To me, it wasn't in depth.
Can I make a
Wasn't
comment on
Chris
that?
Baker.
I mean, the consultant did look in general in regards to the benefit package. All right, so they did acknowledge, there is a statement that says that we're not out of line. And what I also did provide is the benefit factor for the different departments and everything, so you do have that. All right, but the consultant did say that we were not out of line. All right. Other than that-
Each commissioner has a different level of understanding, a different level of interest in the nuts and bolts of the study. What happened is, we did not have a chance to bounce around like we're doing tonight with the consultant that put this together and say, why isn't this in there, did you figure this, did you figure? We didn't get to ask those questions. So in the future, we want that, can't do nothing about it now, it's done, but in the future, we want that opportunity to space the people we're paying. What do we get for our money? You know, why didn't you do this and why didn't? And you're right. That's why tonight, when we told her to put it in the budget, we're not, don't spend it until we set parameters. And that's part of that was based on me reading this and reading hundreds of them. We call them bench studies in the federal government. You know what I'm talking about. You do a bench study, they don't do bench studies. They just check numbers with corresponding cities. Your point before, Brian, about which cities do they use, why, what's a comparable city? The land, Orange City ain't a comparable city, DeBer's not a comparable city, but they're only, well, they only went to get ones in our area.
It depends on what you want to compare it to.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, you can compare it to anything and you can make huge differences.
If you're gonna compare to all the cities around, they don't just pick and choose.
Well,
no,
they
if you
just pick random.
They're looking at cities in Volusia County.
Right.
Or are you looking at cities in Central Florida? Are you looking at cities of similar population? Are you looking at cities?
That they did, that's all over.
Well, no, but I'm saying, you can what if that.
That's
to
where the
death.
parameters are. We want, if you take 5 like cities in Central Florida, like ours, you could almost name them, Melbourne. You know, I mean, you got Melbourne, and you got several.
You have to pick out what the similarities are that you want to compare to.
Yeah, you gotta.
You gotta say population,
Set the parameter,
budget, average cost of living, you
Cost
know.
of living,
Yeah, cost of living means a lot. Okay, Brian, you had something else?
Well,
Or did you just?
Brian, no.
no,
he's
yeah,
next.
what I was just gonna say is, but don't, the company that did this, do they not owe us a trip in here before we agree on this? To let us ask the questions?
Staff's already accepted it and given you a report and a recommendation.
But,
I don't know.
just even going back to the 20 or 30 year thing, it changes numbers.
What would you accomplish by that?
I don't know, I just, like I said, you're looking at a large document with a lot of things in it that hasn't been well communicated to us at all. Not one bit. We were handed a stack that big, a couple months ago, then they gave us some up, now we got everything on a brother on this thing in here. So, I just wasn't done, to me, it wasn't handled properly. Yes, I don't want to screw the lower end people, you know, but like Diane just said, it's, the proposal that was handed to us basically said, give everybody a raise. That's what it basically says, give everybody a raise. And you can't tell me that it doesn't show that, and that's going off a 30-year bucket instead of a 20-year or a 10-year. Which, that's my question to these guys is, okay, so when you did Daytona, when you did these other cities, what bucket did they go off of? How many years out? What's the projection? Why are we doing this? So we can't even ask those questions. We're just going to assume that it was done properly, but yet there's not one person going.
The alternative, and it's what you're looking for, other than just, you know, the alternative would be to not accept it. Call them back in here and redo the study, and pay somebody else.
Redo it, just explain it to us. So I feel
Walk us
comfortable.
through it, but ultimately the goal, I kind of had some of the feelings you guys are having, and I vented myself and I looked at it, and you could see it, mine is sitting in the trash can next to my desk, because it's a fact of what's there, and I'm not going to change the facts. At the end of the study's done, it's done. I guess you could get a better feeling maybe if you had some of your questions.
I would feel a lot better after saying yes or no.
You want the methodology change is what you want.
Well, I want to know, I want to justify.
They're not going to do additional work with us.
No, I just want to justify, okay, how'd you do this, what do you normally do?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you want to just ask those questions, I'm sure Jane could provide them with the questions and they can give you a written answer on it, but to actually do the study, to change the figures, it's probably in their computer, they probably can hit a button and do a 20-year instead of a 30-year or a 10-year, 50. They probably can do that. I would imagine they've got a
Well, I'm a little
matrix in
surprised
there.
they just didn't include all the scenarios
Well, I don't,
Why
well, you
didn't
don't
they
know,
give us that?
as they were doing the study, we don't know what questions were being asked by staff. We don't know that
Did our
process.
staff direct that?
I'm
Did
sure
we
they-
direct them
they-
30?
No,
I don't think.
No,
That
no.
was them, totally them.
as far as I know, that
Yeah.
was them.
But if
There was
staff
no
would've brought that
direction by
question
staff.
up, they-
The only input that staff had is that they provided a questionnaire. They discussed what they did, whether it met their job description or not. So there was a process for the employee to describe what they're actually doing. Then the supervisors, what they did is they reviewed that questionnaire as to whether or not they agreed, all right? And if there was a disagreement, there was some modification, okay, of the job description. Then they went out and they looked at various communities and did a pulse reading on certain positions and say, all right, who are we comparable to? And there is a listing within the report as what they felt were comparable cities. Now, what I'm hearing is we disagree with that, but this was not staff saying, compare. We said to consultant, you tell us, as you are the expert, who are we comparable with? All right. That was the only direction that we gave, is to look at our compensation, look at who we should be comparable with, and tell us where we should be.
So if I pulled up Daytona, which they did Daytona, I don't know when, but they did Daytona. If I pulled up Daytona, they're gonna do it off a 30-year projection. Because that's what they always do, 30 years.
Unless they're gonna get a different plan.
Unless they gave them a different price.
But she just said we didn't give them
No,
credit.
unless they-
No, we didn't,
Unless
but we
they-
don't know that Daytona did. You see what I'm saying? That's what
Daytona might
happens when you hire.
have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'd like to know all the other cities you're doing, what'd you go off of? Because 30 years is a long time, that's a big bucket. That's a
You're
big.
talking about the list here, of where they're comparing cities?
No.
No, he's talking about
the
the
rate.
The buckets, they're maximum. If I'm working 30 years, yeah, you're
But
talking
that's not a
something way higher.
perception, that's a fact, what they're.
Oh, listen, 30 years is usual standing in education.
Yeah.
30 years, you don't get your jack crap. Sorry.
But is that what they use for the
I don't know, but I mean, I can provide education in 30 years and you're not at a high level.
Which principal
I have
was he? What school was he principal at?
He was,
It's a
never
new
mind,
one,
we'll
they're
talk about
building
that.
it.
I said 30 years and we never run a high.
Principal Jack.
But
We never run a high end of
From
anything.
that school.
Wake up, John. We
It did go right over your head, didn't it?
never run a high end of
What was my earlier statement?
What the heck, I know all the principals here in town, I never heard of that guy.
Reeled it right in.
That's right, that was
Just like,
amazing.
clean up your mouth.
Well,
Okay.
that's true. We never got to top end.
Yeah, I
30
guess
years.
just a couple of comments. I mean, and I guess this is maybe our whole problem is maybe not with the actual study, but maybe with how they did the comparison. What did they use? How did they pick those cities? Did they pick them in population? Did they pick them in I mean, did they do it in
What
median
difference does it
income?
make at the end of the
What
day?
difference does it make?
What
I
difference does it
think
make?
that it makes a difference because when you're looking at when you're looking at saying, okay, we should have fire rescue should be evaluated for additional firefighters, human resources should have an HR director and HR manager. Okay, now that's in a perfect world. We all want that. But I mean, are they looking at the level? Are they looking at our millage rate? Are they looking at what we bring in revenue as a city?
That's what Diane is asking.
That's what I'm saying, and those
Yeah,
are just,
the
that's
same
what I'm
thing.
saying. But I'm
All
just,
three of
maybe,
you are asking the
Well, we should
same
be able to
question.
ask those questions.
yeah, and maybe
You
that would,
Where?
The study is done. I mean, you
But
can,
how would it affect?
but Diane hit the nail on
If
the
I'm
head.
for
If they
it,
were here,
it would have,
if they were
If I'm
here
for it,
tonight.
if you
we
can't,
could ask them.
if you can't afford to do what they're recommending, duh, if the city's not flush to do that,
Well,
I just
I
don't
guess-
see how it would change.
There's two different options right
And they
here.
did tell you,
There's two
wait a minute,
different.
wait a minute, we're all getting off hand, I gotta bring you back in order. Heidi, would you put your tag down? Nancy, your tag, you already talked, or you still got
No,
something
the
else?
manager's next.
I know, but they did tell you, I understand. You gonna put your tag down, Nancy?
Who, me? Oh, that's a. Mitch.
All right, Jane, I can't see that thing. Yeah, there you go. Put it down now, and go ahead and talk.
Well, I was just asking, or just thinking in my mind, yeah, there might be a different comfort level in regards to should this city be in here, should it not be in, but at the end of the day, is it going to change the result? No.
No.
All right.
No, it's not averages.
I mean,
It's
we
comparable.
hired a consultant, somebody who we said was a third party, you know what I mean, to tell us where we should be. This is what the consultant did. You know, we can kind of pick at it and say, you forgot this city or whatever. But as I said, this was not directed to a certain outcome. It was meant so that there be a third party, independent, and tell us where should our employees be in regards to salaries. That was the key question. It wasn't said that, all right, to bring the, this class of people up or to reach this target. It was just tell us what is fair pay. And so the consultant has answered that question. The question you have is, do you want to implement this or not?
And I think the universe that they used was Volusia County. The universe was Volusia County, and I believe both private and public sector. And so we're competing against both of those markets. When we're looking at a staff assistant, you're competing against both the public and private market within Volusia County. It's unfair, I think, to comparison, and we did this. Chief Snyder knows this. When we went through contract negotiations through the years, there was always an argument on what the universe was going to be. Certainly the firefighters wanted the universe to include Orlando and Orange County and Disney World because those guys were getting paid top dollar because they're protecting a top dollar market. Okay? So these folks here have the universe that was agreed upon apparently by the manager when the study was okay, was Volusia County in both the private and public sector. And obviously they compared some benefits. I'm looking at here where they've got holidays and sick days. But it's very difficult. When Jane and I met over this, it's very difficult, and I'll just go back to my previous life in the fire service. In some agencies, you have an engine company that's made up of a firefighter, a driver, engineer, and a lieutenant. In other agencies, I'll use Volusia County as an example, Volusia County doesn't have a driver-engineer position, but yet somebody drives the fire truck. Doesn't get paid extra to drive the fire truck. So you can't just across the board compare titles. It's very difficult in these studies to compare apples to apples and to get that 100% guaranteed comfort level that you want to have. I think at the end of the day, certainly if Brian or Heidi or Diane, whoever has questions, I think they're more than correct and entitled to get answers to those questions to make an informed decision. Nobody at this table should make a non-informed decision and just go along for the sake of going along. But at the end of the day, what I'm hearing, it really isn't going to change the final numbers as to what methodology was really used here. The truth is they compared it to the universe of Volusia County in both private and public sector. And that's maybe an oversimplification, but I think at the end of the day, that's the answer.
Two more questions and we're going to move on. We're supposed to be over at 7:30.
If you go to page 1-6, they did tell you the cities they looked at.
Yes.
Targeted
That's what I
agencies.
said, the
No, I
targeted
They did them
area.
alphabetically. Daytona Beach, DeLand, Deltona, Gainesville. The ones that weren't so bad, they told you what they looked at, because they told you what they didn't look at them for was smaller populations. So that means they looked at comparable cities with population.
Right.
Number of employees, so they looked at cities with comparable number of employees and incomparable positions. So they looked at cities with comparable positions that are structured similarly to the city or providing similar types of service, that are attractive to highly valued city employees for one reason or another, within a reasonable commuting distance, that are competing with the city for employees. So they gave you why they chose them, and then they gave you a long list on 1-6 of.
Was Orange City on there? Was Orange City on there?
No, it's.
No,
That's what I'm saying, but it's on this other piece of paper,
We all
right?
should have read that, and I understand.
No, but I'm
that.
saying,
but everybody's saying what did they compare it to?
The issue is,
No, the supplemental cities are not the same as the cities in there. That's what I'm saying.
But
They're not lined up.
May I answer
you
that?
can't,
Can I answer that for you? If I may.
go ahead.
You're looking at something that is not part of the compensation study. What you're looking at, sir, is when we set up our employee benefit committee to look at healthcare, we did a comparison of cities in Volusia County who are comparable to us, who are fully insured, and we did a comparison chart, okay? So we can look at all the cities around us that are fully insured, and we gave that to the employee benefits committee, so they had an informed decision, so they had all the information in front of them, so when the RFPs are coming back, they can make informed decisions. when we put together the supplemental benefits spreadsheet for your information, what we did was we used the same cities that we used to compare for the health insurance. The health insurance comparison and the supplemental benefits comparison is not part of this compensation study.
But why wouldn't you do the same cities?
Because because the reason we didn't was, again, the benefit health insurance was a list of comparable cities who are fully insured for the benefit of our benefits committee. So they could compare those cities when we start getting our RFPs back. When I was asked to provide the supplemental benefits, we used the same list, since it was health insurance, rather than having a separate list of cities that doesn't match up with the health insurance list. So that is not part of the compensation
Study.
All right, Nancy, let's get
Well,
yours. and we
that
gotta
is
move
basically
on.
exactly what I was gonna say, that if you looked on page 110, it clearly states that the benefit study was not included as part of the scope of this work. But it did go on to say that the city provides benefits that are generally in line with the benefits provided by other communities.
Jane said that an hour ago.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's right
any
there.
other discussion?
Talks too quiet.
Well, she's tired of hitting you.
You got 1 minute for the next item.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
Tag, you're up.
That was actually an FYI, the next item.
Okay, so we had, an hour ago, we said we accepted it, so now we're moving on. But in the future, prior to a study going out, let's help set the parameters, give us an opportunity to set it so you can log that somewhere on your cheat sheet. And then when it's done, we want consultants to give us the final report. I think that's generally what we feel like we have to do, we should do. Okay, moving along. Okay, this is health insurance update.
And actually, I was not asking that we actually present, but I just wanted to kind of give you a kind of like an update as a handout of what we're doing in regards to the RFP. Okay, and also included was a spreadsheet talking about health insurance coverage by other municipalities, in this area. So you have the two sheets in front of you.
Yeah, I just want everybody to look at page number 2, first of all. This is their meeting update, okay? RFP's gonna go out first, we're requesting quotes on the following. This is like your parameters that you were just talking about in the last issue. We don't wanna bring up the last issue, but you see this?
Yeah.
You two are working
So I'm
together.
looking at hers, I didn't get a package.
Oh, well, we're asking to give us quotes on staying with current, increasing deductibles, adding tiers of coverage based on lifestyle, smoking, adding high deductible options, so forth. RFPs are due at 8:15, committee will reconvene, discuss the options. Is there anything we want to add to that?
I
or-
have a question.
Go ahead, sir.
What is the purpose or the financial reduction, if there is one, to the second to last bullet of waiting the 30 to 60 days? The benefits waiting period possibly changes from our current model of eligibility of first of the month following the date of hire to adding in a waiting period of 30 to 60 days. What's the financial advantage to doing that?
Based on an average of 40 employees being hired per year, when someone comes in, of course, the city's going to pay for the health insurance all day, first of the month following date of hire, currently. So we're paying for every employee, we're paying that health insurance. If we waited first of the month after 30 days, and we would cut out 1 month of city paying for health insurance for a new hire, including what we pay for life insurance, what we pay for LTD, FTD, whatever, every benefit that we have, including building up a fund, it would come out to about $55,000 a year.
Okay, but then potentially that new employee doesn't have health care coverage for that 30 to 60 day period.
Correct.
If they're coming from a place where they had health insurance. They may not be coming from someplace that they had COVID.
But that's normal.
That is
That's normal. Actually, mine's 90
Actually,
days.
90
It's
days.
90 in my life.
And we also did a comparison of again, the cities that we were comparing with our health insurance, and the average, the norm is first and third.
Okay, but don't forget,
And this is something.
this is something they're going to study.
Correct.
It's something they're going to study. We're not making a decision here. This is what we were talking about in the last issue. this is what the
Well,
parameters are to
the
study.
reason I raised that question is,
Without health insurance.
well, yes, there is a concern for the new employee that they don't have that health insurance for that 30 to 60 days. They may be coming from a situation where they didn't have health care insurance, or it was not affordable, or because of their age, they fell off their parents' insurance, and now they're in this gap. But wait a
What
minute.
are you saying?
I'm trying to get to the point. That's a concern. The other concern is this has in the past, Chief, you know who I'm talking about, this has in the past caused possible fraudulent workers' comp issues, where somebody gets injured off duty and brings that injury to the city with them in the morning, and all of a sudden it becomes a workers' comp case.
In the 30
Because they didn't have, yes, because they knew they didn't have health care insurance, they got hired, something happened to them, and now they put it on our workers' comp
Okay.
for something that happened
Yes.
off city time.
But that's fraud. That's
That's
not
an internal
fraud.
No,
Can I answer you?
but it's happened. I just don't know that the savings is necessarily that great.
May I answer? This is an update of issues that were brought up by the committee, and ideas by the committee. This is simply an update
I
of
understand.
what they said. Nothing, we haven't said it's good, it's bad. This is something that they were just ideas that were being thrown out.
I
that
understand,
added to
and
the list.
I'm voicing my opinion because the mayor said about setting the parameters for the RFQ
But
when
this
it
is
goes
what
out.
I think
I don't
we're
necessarily support that being
I don't
included in
either.
the RFQ to say 50,000 a year. I think we can be putting ourselves in a much worse position, possibly, with even one claim.
Right.
That wouldn't be put in part into the proposal. That's just an option of ways that we can save a little bit of money.
Discuss it.
That would be
You're
part
right.
of a
I
proposal.
wouldn't agree to it either, but that's it. Okay, I'm highly agree with that.
Brian's next.
Brian?
Well, I'm just gonna touch this subject real quick. We're looking at ways to minimize health insurance costs. We spent $3.7 million last year. Anything helps. What we're talking about, in my line of work, you come work for my company, you don't get benefits or anything after 90 days. So it's a probationary period. We want to see if you're going to be, if I'm going to make the investment in you. And every employee that goes and gets a job there, they know I got to wait my 90 days and then I get my benefits.
You get a workers' comp claim, you don't stay on after a 90-day probationary period. I know what you're talking about. That's the way it is.
Moral of the story is,
A lot of companies, you get hurt that point.
you're talking, we have 300 plus employees, plus
Okay, but
we're employing, family members as well. I mean, insuring family members as well. That should be definitely something we look at least look into.
Okay,
So-
but this is the parameters for the study. That's what I'm trying to, did you have any problem with the parameters?
That's what he's saying.
On the
Anything
tiers
you
of
wanna add
on
to
the
it?
tiers of deductibles, okay?
Not-
Are we looking at strictly 500? Are we looking at 1,000? Are we?
It's going to depend on what they come back. We're telling them these are the areas that we are willing to look at. So give us your proposals, and when the proposals come back with actual numbers, then we will have a better idea.
Just from there.
Yes.
Okay, Heidi?
Same thing as Brian, in the private sector, you got 90 days, your 3-month probationary period, and you know what, look at 90 days as well, or at least look at 90 days for family members. I don't know if that works or not, but I just, when I'm looking at a compensation study, and I'm looking at some of the salaries that the upper levels make, and they're not bad. And then especially if you're not factoring benefits in there, in the private sector, there are no benefits. A lot of times you can't even get a full-time job in places, especially if you're at the level of the residents of Deltona, which is service industry for the most part, a lot of people. So, 30, 60 days for sure. If you want to even add 90 in there, I'm open to that too, because
Well, we couldn't do.
You couldn't do 90?
We can't do 90 because of the ACA.
Okay.
It would either have to be 90 days. 90 days is the max that
Okay.
you could wait. So it would either be 90. We usually do first of the month after so many days, so that's why generally it's first of the month after 60. That would for some employees that would push that out to
so it's
almost
the
90.
first of the month
Okay,
after
and
start
the next
date.
question I have is the firefighters, when you are including this, does that have to be part of the bargaining then?
Firefighters they have the same health plan. We got that. in
No,
the
So
last
they have to be
contract.
negotiated if it's a change in
Yeah.
benefits, I believe.
Yeah, so, but it
Yes.
wouldn't be for the rest of
Attorney's
the.
saying yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so when we're looking at that, you're basically looking at, whatever you do, you're looking at possibly having to change it for the union, for the firefighters, correct? Okay.
Well, wait a minute.
Well, what-
That's a stretch. We negotiated with them to accept it, but it has to be renegotiated.
If they
it
change,
changes.
if
Right.
they change.
If they
the-
change
But they accepted it.
But I mean, for the general employee, for her, like, if you institute changes for anybody else coming in or for whatever, there's,
Right.
that they have to accept those
They're not
changes.
protected, right?
They're
They're
not
right,
protected.
okay, that's all, I just want,
It's
But also,
gotta be
let,
the same for both.
let me also clarify, in the collective bargaining agreement, we did actually make some parameters where we could make some
Right.
changes. I have to
Yeah.
look at the language,
long
that
as-
it did
yeah.
give us some leeway to make
There it
changes
But
to health
we-
insurance.
what did he say, have to be the same for
You
both?
can't have a different policy
You can't
for
have
the
a different policy.
firefighters than for
Right, you can't
the
give them better
employees.
benefits.
They're gonna have, no.
No.
When you have a contract with United Healthcare, it's the same for all the city employees.
But then never mind, that's a whole
We
other
need
thing.
to check
Okay.
that language because
There's some leeway.
there's some leeway. All right, Nancy, and then let's wrap this up.
My question has only to do with the RFPs. Where all will you be sending this RFP out? How are you sending it out to?
Nancy? Ask Jane what her plan is.
What is your plan for where all will the RFPs go out? 'Cause I'm looking at, right now, of course, that's United Healthcare is what we all have for all of this. But are we going to be hitting some of these other insurance companies that these?
We're gonna wanna hit as many insurance companies as
Yes.
And
we
it's
can
going
get.
out to,
It's gonna be advertised.
It'll be advertised.
Anybody that wants to bid. can
okay, that's what I was
Or
wondering.
who are we advertising?
Magazines, how many, the trade
The
magazines?
health
or-
trade magazines, hospitals.
Because that's where we
Yeah,
had the
what
problem
you do is
before.
you put it on
Provider.
Demand
Demand
Star,
Star.
that kind of thing,
Demand
because
Star.
they all check that.
Because that's where we had some problems
You don't
with
have
2 years ago, not
Yeah.
getting everything out.
Yeah.
Who's the school board got to do it? They're self-insured now.
No, they were Florida Health, well, they have Florida Healthcare and Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yeah, it's changing rapidly.
It's
so-
changing again. Most
Okay.
people use Florida Healthcare.
So is everybody comfortable with what they're doing though, huh? They're going out to bid, and they're gonna go out as many as they can, and then we don't know much until they come back. Now, you see on this attached, local city survey that was done, this gives you an idea of those local cities. Now, do you think that we wanna go outside our county?
I think it's using enough right here.
Well, it looks like they got everybody, we got Deltona, New Smyrna, I mean, I don't know that.
What more are you gonna get
Cost
from
of the
going
study.
anyplace else?
Well, the RFP, are you going to, is the RFP already, it's ready to go, isn't it? Because it goes on the first, right?
You'll be, Gene will be in this week.
Okay, but I'm saying,
With the RFP.
with the finished RFP format,
For review.
so, I mean, are you gonna indicate what cities, or are you gonna let them choose them cities? That was a little bit of contention here, so,
No,
I mean, the healthcare providers, I mean, are you
There's a
gonna,
demand
you're
on,
not gonna limit
Demand
it?
Star.
You're not gonna limit it to anybody, that anybody who wants.
anybody who
Okay.
wants to submit.
That's why I asked that
Just
question,
want,
make
don't
sure.
want it to come up later, and then they can say, why didn't you think, okay. So everybody's set to go then?
Well,
Okay.
on this, yeah, can I just ask what we decided on the compensation study?
That I would
Go
include,
with the-
With invitation.
Mayor, with all due respect, I think there's several of the commissioners that have unanswered questions. I think they deserve answers to their questions.
Well,
Before that change.
I don't think it's gonna change anything, but I think they, I
You
think,
want to withhold it until you get your answers, or you just want the answers for?
You know, what does it, well, he's not here. What does it mean to, our budget planning if we ask them to come in like at our next workshop?
it doesn't matter, because all I'm doing is, we're not implementing until October. All I'm gonna do is
Oh.
put an amount in the budget.
Good. All right, can we agree to this? Let's put the amount in the budget and tell them in a nice way that we felt like we didn't get a sufficient explanation of how they did the study, and there are some unanswered questions. We'd like them to come in, but we already paid them.
I think Diane in her review of the contract there, or the agreement, says they're supposed to come in and make a final presentation.
Well, no,
They said they
it
talked to
talks
us.
to, I think it might have been in the bid, I don't
Yeah.
remember, I looked at a
Everybody
lot of
talked to
things
us.
over the last, it might have
did
said
talk.
in the bid, but it definitely said communication with
I
city
think-
commission.
communicate with
I'd be
Christian
happy
Yes.
with, can I have a contact name? I have a real problem saying, let's pass this on and we'll fix it next time. I have a real problem with that.
What do you mean?
That was said.
What do you mean fix it the next?
Well, we said the
If we don't-
next
if
time
we
we'll
finally
make
don't
sure we get 10, 20, 30, we'll have them come in. That was discussed earlier.
Well,
Someone said that.
that's if you want to interject and put your own parameters.
I don't. I just have questions about
Sure.
the study.
You're comfort, I understand you're comfortable, and I didn't mean to assume that next time we would do it, next time we learn from our mistakes, but I don't think there's any reason in the world why that one clause in there, they never talked to any of us at any time, and that was part of the agreement. And so now, we expected an exit, an exit review. And just tell them, we feel that if they ever want to do business with the
No,
city,
no,
they need
this
to
is-
come
this
in.
is- this
I
is-
think you could convey that without
Oh,
being
yeah,
ugly.
this is not, believe me, this
Yeah.
is
Well,
me. This is not,
Don't
them.
let Chris call him, because he'll make them mad.
This is not them not wanting to come in. This is kind of like my oversight that I had not,
Tell them we need to have,
Okay, so to fix this problem, so we can all go home tonight, there's 4 of us sitting on this side of the table, a majority.
5 of us, because I feel the same
Okay,
way.
there's 5 of us then.
You just shot it forward just 10 minutes ago.
Because you guys are not being.
That's what I'm saying.
Bring that, Jane, bring the consultant back in
Yeah, just tell them we want to.
for a workshop with
Where's that
us.
flag blowing in the wind?
That way, everybody gets their Mayor, please. I got the floor, so we're in agreement, bring them back in. That way, everybody can get their questions answered, they can get the final draft report. They don't have to read to us off of a thing.
You should have done that 10, 15 minutes ago.
Just bring them in, so Brian and everybody that's got questions can ask their questions, and then I think there's more of a comfort level with being able to move it forward. I didn't hear anybody's really against the study, the outcome of the study. They just got questions on how they arrived at their conclusion.
Tetra Tech just walked out of here and said, it's very important that we talk to every one of you guys. And give a that's all we're saying, the same thing.
They did too.
Okay, so that's all I'm saying, is where are they? I thought they were here too.
no, and I'm
But I
fine with
know
that.
Rod Cash.
Because as I said, we have time. It's just that I want to know where our commission headed so I can plan in regards to the budget. And now, if you have questions, that's fine.
And I did give Jane a new vehicle. Jane, could you hold your new vehicle? I got her a new vehicle for, it's a little.
Now, how's Alex gonna get in there?
As a dumb, she's gonna.
That's how you get Alex
You
in
don't
it.
need, how's he gonna pick up the garbage?
You
You know
just
what I mean?
fall in there and lift him up, put him in the back. Okay, is there any other questions, comments? No, sir.
I just want to be clear on the consultant. You're going to bring the consultant in for another workshop. We're not
We're
going
gonna
to.
ask Jane.
Jane's gonna bring the consultant in for
Another workshop.
a question and answer session on his final draft report.
Yeah, you're right.
Clarified it for you.
Thank you.
Adjourn the meeting, so you go.
And I have 2 jobs.
That's it?
When you leave here, what you say is gonna be totally different than what you say. Oh, by the way, we are adjourned.
I was gonna say, hello.
Why did we get, why did we get, why did we get, why did we get